Everyone, this is the Ashland Planning Board meeting of December 1st, 2022. We have a number of public hearings tonight, but first on our agenda is the clerk report. And let me also just remind everyone that that the meeting is being recorded and broadcast. Kate, do you want to have the clerk's report?
Yes, Madam Chair, planning board has received two correspondence since the 11/10/22 meeting. 399 Union Street on the agenda this evening. We have received three correspondence. Two were sent to the town planner, who sent forward them to the board. And that is it. Okay,
great, thank you. And before I forget, because I made a note of it, I did want to just remind the board or tell the board, if you haven't checked your Ashland email, you should have an invite there to tour the Mendez school building this weekend. So if you are interested in that, please check your email and feel free to join that tour. Remember to dress warmly. The building is not heated. So all right, so the first item on our agenda is the 501 Pond Street special permit and site plan review that was continued from October 27th. Anna was here somewhere, I thought, but maybe she is.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because we're going to go right into 501.
Oh, okay. In that case, if it's time for me to step out, I can certainly do that.
You're in and now you're out.
Okay. I will now leave, and Peter, you can text me when it.
That's all. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Anna. And as usual, stepping in for Anna for 501 Pond Street will be Kevin McLean, our associate member. We've been getting obviously a lot of different kind of wrap-up materials on 501. Something in the background. I believe at this point, everything I have requested, or I thought that I had kept track of that the committee had requested, I believe has been submitted. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So we will be going over tonight the criteria and the certificate of approval, the draft approval tonight. And at that time, depending on the board, the comfort level of the board, we may opt to close the public hearing. We may opt to vote on this project. So we're kind of at that point. So I'll leave it up to members of the board to obviously express if there are any issues remaining unanswered. So before we start on that process, Peter, do you have any update on this that we should note? And do you know if the applicant has anything they wanted to talk about?
So thank you, Tricia. So on this project specifically, I agree with you that all elements have been wrapped up and everything that the planning board was looking for has been submitted, which lastly would include the lead checklist and the response to the design review committee. They have submitted a few other elements, but the most important thing is the decision. The draft has been sent out. The special permit and all site plan approval findings have been sent out. Obviously, there's been editing that kind of has been going through since the last meeting, and obviously I've been working on that with the Madam Chair. So thank you so much for the hard work on that. At that point, I really haven't, besides the elements that I've been sending out, which were requested of the board, I have no new updates. Ben Stevens, representing Trask Development, I will let him opt to address any outstanding issues that may have come up and to update the board. Ben Stevens, would you like to step forward and say a few words?
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're there. We've worked collectively with staff and with Peter, and I think the document's in great shape, and I appreciate all the help. But I think we're there.
All right. Any questions from the board before I have Peter bring up kind of the first document, which Peter, the first thing I wanted to do was bring up the site plan review criteria. But are there any comments, questions from the board before we start that discussion?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay. Peter, do you have that on hand? So as before, there's two documents here. There's a site plan review document, and there is a special permit document. The documents are basically identical, except for the criteria that relate to each part of that, whether it relates to the site plan review on its own or whether it relates to special permits that are needed. So we've been through these before, but I did want to go through in case anyone has any questions, any comments to add. These are the criteria that we need to go through, and we kind of talk about them throughout the project. So this can basically summarizes our thoughts as the discussion has proceeded this past year. Please just jump in, because sometimes I'm going to be looking at the document on my desk for where things that I had wanted to mention. So if I don't see you, just jump in, planning board. The one thing I wanted to point out here is on item K, and this is kind of actually go to item G first, Peter. And this is trying in an effort to keep trying to make these documents more clear. So item G refers to the town services and infrastructure. And so here we're talking about the sewer pipe installation and the installation of this feed station that DPW is requesting. So it's about putting these very special conditions in, mentioning them, how they deal with town services and infrastructure, and then referring them for more information to the special project conditions, which goes into great detail on these things. But here just noting what the exceptions are on town service and infrastructure and what we're expecting. The second part of that is in K that I wanted to mention. And this is, again, something I've kind of may become more typical in our criteria. So here we're talking about parking, loading, signage, dimensions, these things. And I'm mentioning here that with the approved exceptions described under waivers. So these are the things like the loading exception that we're making, the exception for the size of the parking spaces. So it's mentioning them here and then referring them to the conditions, to the other document, which goes through them in much greater detail. So I've been going through these things with Peter to try to make these documents as accessible and easy to read and understand as possible without repeating information, with repeating information as little as possible. So so you'll see some of those clarifications as we go along. Did anyone?
Tricia, just quick question. The documents that we're seeing right now are identical to the ones that Peter distributed earlier?
Yes.
No changes?
Yes. So these are the ones that Peter distributed. I think it was on Friday, right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was on Friday.
Right?
Okay, because I read those, but and I was comfortable with it, but I didn't.
Yes.
I want to make sure that there was no further changes to those.
No changes since then. No changes. So any changes that we make from now on are here in the meeting where we all can see them.
Okay.
So so that was the site plan review criteria, and again, those would be inserted into the longer document, but they're two separate documents. So does anyone have any other comments or questions on the site plan review criteria? Okay. Is seeing none, Peter, we can go to the longer document on the site, the special permit approval document. So again, any changes we make outside of the criteria of this document will be made simultaneously in both documents.
Sure, I just have one quick question.
Yep.
We are referring to a particular parking space, for example, as referring to parking space. So when this package is put together, we document that reference plan as well, right? They are not like two separate floating documents, right?
Are you talking about like this actual site plan?
Yeah, because that particular, there's a criteria which talks about that parking lot being allocated for that owner parking spot. It refers to as parking spot D or whatever.
Yes.
I'm just curious, like, do we always package them together when we finally document them?
Yes. So this, this larger document, which will also be the site plan review will be this big, right? This has listed in it on the second page, all the documents starting at the second page, documents with the current revision date. And so I know because I was just looking at it, document C1, which is the site plan, which we'll look at later because I do have a question on that. It actually has a letter D in that parking area in the WUNRF. So it is referring to something very specifically.
Okay.
So I think here the highlighted areas on here, which I'm sure noted on your documents, are things that Peter could not fill in because they are the date the hearing was closed, and well, we haven't closed it yet, right? So so those are things he needs to fill in at the last minute. And Peter, I noticed that you have revision dates of 11/16. Obviously, which is just 2 weeks ago on some of these documents. Do you know if all of those dates are up to, or all the dates of the revisions up to with everything that the most current drawings that have been sent to us? I guess is my question.
And so I've worked with the applicant since Friday, since working on making sure all the revision dates hold true.
Okay.
And then also all documents that were submitted have been added as well, which include the lead checklist and the DCR comments.
So that would be added to this list of documents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Peter, is the latest version of all these plans on the website somewhere? Is there one package? I mean, the last thing I see submitted plan-wise is from September on the website.
I think we added it today.
So in those, the up-to-date documents.
We've added them, not today, I'm sorry. I got some things going on. We added them this week when it was submitted, yes.
And those,
I mean, where are those? Where is the final plan set?
They're on the website.
Okay. I'll have to, well, the latest date I see is September something.
Yeah.
Material submitted for October 13th meeting, and it's all dated September 22nd at the latest.
Yeah, I have it, and that was the one that was worked off by GCG, a third-party consultant, and in the fire department and all departments. So if that slipped through the cracks, I apologize.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. I've been looking at the documents that you had sent us as the most up-to-date documents, but the other that they don't seem to have been posted yet. So
okay, I can I'm on the town website right now, but I'm sharing my screen, so I apologize. But I can confirm, Kevin, that 11/16 was the latest that went back and forth with GCG for all
affordability, but again, without going into the detail, that's going to be later in the document. Any questions about location and use? It's probably straightforward. All right, you want to move forward into this? Oh, good. Okay. Again, please just yell out because I'm kind of half looking at the sheet on my desk and half looking at the screen. So, as I'm sure Peter is as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, please just call out. This is obviously to sustainability.
Yep, so,
Right here, the checklist is just added in as well.
okay. So that has been added. I guess that has been added to, in answer to Marcelo's question, that has been added since it went out on Friday, but it
Correct.
was only filling in the spot that you had designated for it.
That's correct.
Right, because my sheet says add lead checklist at that
Mhm.
at that location. So, okay. Okay, electric vehicle charging station.
That was certified by the applicant. We're gonna have 29, 30. They were providing 9 spots from the get-go, and they have the potential to add 59. That would be 68 out of 80 spaces.
Okay, and that 59.
That can be confirmed on sheet C1.
Yeah, actually, I had a question on that. So if you could bring up questions, sheet C1, which is one of the new ones you sent out. And I know this sheet was revised, but I want to understand how it's consistent with these numbers.
Yeah, I'll bring up the sheet and then I'll
Okay.
then
I'll
have
show you-
them
I'll show you what I
walk us
mean.
through. All right.
I'm fine with the numbers themselves. I just want the documentation to be consistent.
Everyone see? Sheet 3.
Yes, okay. So that's it. C1. Now, if we zoom into those notes again. Yep. All right. So at the end of number 3, right above number 4, it says 31 spaces are to be designated in note 7 as EV ready spaces, right? But of course, that's not the right number. That number is too low. So on number 7, it says 14, 17, and 28 undesignated spaces along the north, south, and west of the building, respectively, shall be constructed as EV ready parking. So obviously that number isn't consistent. I think the 31 is too low, right? It doesn't, it's old. It's an old number. But also when we look at the 14, 17, and 28, I believe the 17 is a 15. And so I think this number we're adding is 57. So on the north side, I believe so the numbers called out are 14, 17, and 28. The 28 is right there on the south side. You can see a 13 and a 15, which equals 28. That's the south side of the building. That's on the back of the building. I believe the 14, and if someone knows, they can jump in. Yep. So I believe that 13 plus 15 is the 28 designated on the south side of the building. If you count on the right-hand side of the building, which would be the north side, it says 22 there, but that counts all the spaces. If you count the non-designated spaces, I think there are 14. Which would be the 14 spaces on the north side.
Mm-hmm.
And if we count the other side where it says 22 spaces, the undesignated spaces, I think there are 15 spaces there. If we don't count the handicap spaces or the already designated EV spaces.
I have 15 as well.
So I think that number 17 should be 15, and we're actually adding 57 spaces to whatever total that is, 70 out of 180.
Ben and Matt, Trask, is
Yeah.
that duly noted?
That's fine. It should be, I think it should be 15, 17, and 28.
Yeah. And then that number 31, I believe, is being changed to 57.
Correct. We didn't catch that one. We
Okay.
caught it in the note number 7. I didn't catch it in note number 3.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to quibble about 2 parking spaces. If anyone on the board obviously has a different opinion, I'm happy to hear it, but I just want the numbers to be correct. So
I agree. As long as there's consistency, I think the intent is being met, right? I mean, how cumbersome it is to just make things match. What would that entail, or can that be like noted?
In my opinion, the decision calling out the number will sort of overrule the discrepancy on page C1. So I think as long as we have the total of 15, 17, and 28 in the decision, that'll be the final, because there's a slight discrepancy on C1. So
to make that work, we'd have to take away the reference to C1 though, because otherwise it's just a flat out conflict. We can't have that.
the alternative is I just provide a new C1 tomorrow to match.
is that preferred? I mean, I think we can still move forward and not.
I think so. I mean, for clarity,
Yeah.
I agree with you that the document should be consistent, and that's very important. So if the applicant can submit a corrected plan before we sign the final decision, I don't have any problem with that.
That's fine. We can do that.
So Peter, we would expect at least this drawing C1 to be on the table with any documents that we're signing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I wouldn't ask for any signatures on the decision until the plan is submitted.
Okay.
Just a quick point about that. Like, I don't want it to get messier, but just to be clear, is that going to have a new revision just because you worked very carefully to get all the dates? So is the C1 going to have another revision or another date?
I would just ask the plan to be amended on as of December 1st.
Well, what we can do,
the cover sheet needs to be updated then.
Mm-hmm.
Quite honestly, I think it'd be easier if we just leave the date as is and I re-provide it with the same date. Because you have a lot of documents making references to these dates already.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
if it's okay, let's leave the November 16th date in, but I'll provide a new C1.
Okay. It is just a typo, I think.
Yeah, it's just a typo.
Yeah.
So as long as it's corrected, I think we would be consistent.
Yeah, it's not a substantive change. The document,
No.
we're going with the drawings, and the text just didn't match the drawings. So, okay. So that said, we are back on sustainability. I didn't have any other comments on sustainability. Did anyone else have any comments on sustainability?
One question, we might have talked about this already, but the gas connection, it says it's provided for use in commercial spaces and residential common areas. Are we planning to heat the residential common areas with gas, or was it just for the commercial spaces?
If it's okay, I'll answer that. We have a gas feature outside with a gas fireplace. We might have an internal gas fireplace, and our assumption is that if the commercial units have a gas heating unit, then the common area lobby, if you will, would as well.
Okay, so that would be for heat, and I was just getting confused between here and 100 Chestnut, where I think they wanted it in case they brought a restaurant in or something. But, you know, to me, if we don't need gas into a giant apartment building causing a fire hazard where, you know, the town would need to call in all sorts of enforcements if we had a fire in this building. It's just, there's no reason to have it there if we don't need it. If it's just there to the outside as a fireplace, that's different than being used for heat.
So, what is it being used? It's the fireplace outside, but the commercial has always been allowed at like 100 Chestnut Street. It had been allowed to have gas if needed. I guess what is your intent there at the present time?
Well, just like 100 Chestnut, our assumption is if this is a medical use or some use that would never use gas, then the units would be electric. Then the only gas feature, we assumed a outdoor gas fire pit, if you will, for the residents. So there would be gas to the building, whether it's just for that outdoor gas fireplace or potentially for the commercial. We're not quite sure, to be quite honest with you.
Because we don't know what those commercial spaces are. And
We don't know what they're going to be just yet, so.
I think that's why we had added in the preference of the board is to use electric heat pumps. But we acknowledge that gas connections at this point in time may still be desired or used for these particular areas of the building.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that works for me with the preference of the board. Maybe just add 4 commercial spaces and residential common areas. I imagine there's a fair amount of heat for the 10,000 square feet of residential common indoor space.
No, and
This is the sustainability section.
yeah, and I mean having the gas there in terms of planning of a building of this size, I think that point is fairly negligible for the way that systems operate in proximities and distribution. So I don't think it's that meaningful, to be honest.
So, but Kevin, you would have just where it says, where it talks about the preference to use heat pumps for commercial spaces, you would just add in and residential common areas so that we're consistent with both things. Is that right?
And you can leave that last sentence that allows it to be piped into the building for the small miscellaneous uses, or should have need it.
So is the building going to be to have gas meters separated for these 2 purposes, I assume?
Yes, there might be just 1 meter for the common area, the common spaces and the outdoor fireplace if there's no need for the commercial gas. But there might be potential 3 meters if for some reason we had 2 commercial tenants that needed gas plus the common area. That would be it.
Okay.
So Peter, do you want to add that into this right now? So after heat pumps for commercial spaces, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Just add and residential common areas.
Does that work?
Kevin, does that
Yeah.
work? Okay. All right. Anything else on sustainability?
My only other one was that we never talk about on the solar panels. Is there any requirement of how many solar panels, or would you say solar panels will be installed? Like, would they satisfy this by slapping 2 solar panels up there, or does it need to power the building?
Were they shown on one of the drawings? I thought we looked at them.
We saw a section that the architect showed in several of the meetings, demonstrating how they would be located at a point that's not visible.
I think to the fullest extent possible.
What was that, Peter?
We could add the language, the building will be built with solar-ready solar panels on the roofs to the fullest extent possible. So you're asking them to maximize the solar infrastructure, to Kevin's point.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I was trying to remember, I know we saw a plan, but it might have been for 100 Chestnut Street of the solar panels on the building, at least anticipated, right?
I think there was a roof plan too, isn't it?
Yeah, roof plan.
There is a roof plan.
Does it show the solar panels? Can we?
Yeah, if I can bring it up right
Okay,
now.
please.
Matt, you are now a co-host.
Thank you.
In which case, maybe we just add solar panels as shown on plan, whatever.
So the shaded area is labeled, I think, future solar location.
Correct.
Okay.
And do we, a question for all the members of the board, because the roof plan and the design intent and the perspective renderings that we've seen demonstrate that these devices are not visible from the street and are not impacting the architecture, which is a pet peeve of mine. Is this clear enough, or do we need to specify it on the decision? So that in the future, there's not an application that starts hanging roofs and hanging panels on the roofs for whatever reason on the sloped portions.
Yeah, maybe that note where we're at right now would be the place to include that. Be hidden from view.
Yeah, just as shown in this drawing, whatever this drawing is called. If we can specify that on the decision, say that the plans and future plans for solar panels should be approved only in the area shown in Plan A103. Or something to that effect.
I agree, Marcella, and I think we saw the other elevation in the other project and not in this. I don't think we ever drew that kind of that inclined panels. So I think we should definitely put that. We spent so much time on the architectural refinement for this project, so we should definitely do that.
Yeah, we can put a note in there. I did want to note that on the site plan review criteria, we didn't talk about it just now, but under point F, where it says screen objectionable features from neighborhood properties and roadways, we do have a note in there that says, in addition, the roof has been designed to hide equipment and future solar panels. So those are the criteria by which we are approving the project, and those are a part of the decision. But I'm not saying we shouldn't add it in here. We can still re-mention it.
Okay, I'm comfortable. Deepa, what are your thoughts?
I agree, but I also hear what Kevin was trying to get at. I think if they have shown the whole roof to be solar ready, we should make sure that we're quantifying that scope by referring to that drawing A103. I think we should still have that. I think Kevin's concern was on how do you quantify the number of panels that will at the end of the day go up after 2 years?
Yes, so the building will be built solar ready for solar panels on the roof to the extent shown, at minimum to the extent shown on sheet, whatever it was. With
A103.
A103.
So at minimum to the extent shown on sheet. I'm sorry, what was it again?
A103.
A103. Okay. Solar panels shall be screened from view. How did you want to word that?
Well, I guess your point is that we already said it, that there was screening. I guess if we could phrase it in a way that the extent of solar panels that we're referring to is only is approved only in the areas depicted on that drawing, not anywhere else. So that in the future, there's no controversy about it.
And you may want the date of that plan as well, Peter, if there are different versions of your plans floating around.
Matt, do you have a date on that plan?
That is 10/20/22.
And 20, right?
20th, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so now we're being a little, I think we need to take some of this out because we're saying, and maybe it was my error, we're saying at minimum to the extent shown, and then we're saying only as shown.
No,
So-
actually, what did you say? Because you say at minimum because some are shown, right? But we can say at maximum in the areas shown on that drawing so that it doesn't extend beyond that, like onto the roofs or other surfaces. I don't know if it's redundant. Maybe it's redundant.
I think maybe we can take out the first part that I added.
So I wonder if we should leave it at the minimum because I guess they haven't done a calculation of how many panels they would need and how the inclination and if they've really done that calc. If they haven't done it and if that roof is not going to be sufficient, they're going to look for other places for it.
No,
Right.
I get it. And that's what I'm trying to make sure that never happens, that the panels are never kind of hang in a
Location you don't want to see. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the plan is clear. The plan shows an area where there's panels from the get-go and a hatched area for future additional panels, right? So as long as whatever the wording is says that we expect the panels to be installed as per this drawing from the get-go, which is the at minimum part, I think I understand it that way. But beyond the hashed area in the future, if for whatever reason there's incredible incentives and it ends up being good to go beyond that there's not it is not permitted to go beyond that hatched area because it's shown in that plan very clearly. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, Marcelo, and I agree with Tricia. If you remove the first sentence that Tricia put in, we are approving the solar panels in the shaded areas as shown on that sheet. So that sheet only.
Right.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Does
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
Does
I would
everyone
take out
read-
that first part. I think the first part suggests that we should put it in other places. At minimum, you have to fill this. I think we want to take that out. We want to say you should fill the area designated,
In that drawing.
Yes.
So maybe the installation of solar panels should be maximized within the space
There you go.
indicated as shown on sheet A103.
Yeah.
Okay.
So solar panels should be, instead of are approved, should be maximized.
Or the area is only shown on the reference plan. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Change 4 to within.
I would add an L to should, and I would, right there. Solar panels should be maximized within the Solar panels should be maximized. Shouldn't they only go with, solar panels should be maximized only within the areas? Maybe I think we just take out only. Solar panels shall be maximized within the areas shown on the reference plan. There. Or do you need the only in there? Solar panels shall be maximized, but only within the areas shown.
Or just a second sentence, no solar panels shall be built outside of this area.
Okay, yep.
Do you want a second sentence?
Yeah, so after 10, yep, no solar panels will be built outside the designated area. Okay, and then change build to built. There you go. How's that?
Even better.
Good? Okay.
Beat down to death.
Yeah, I agree. Well, all right. Moving on. Anything else on sustainability?
Peter, all that I would say is just make sure you have a copy of the plan, but like Kevin said, it's not on the website and I didn't find it on my email track as well. So just make sure you have those right plans that these are referring to.
Okay, Matt, can you please send those to me as soon as possible, just so I can confirm?
Yeah, they were the ones I sent to you on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Why can't you?
Okay, so going into special permit criteria. So these are, again, the criteria in the bylaws. We have gone through them, obviously, in discussion before. I would note item B, which refers, talks about the WMRF, talks about the MWRTA stop. Talks about in the second paragraph the safety between this site and the golf cart, the mini golf site. So all of that kind of looking out at traffic flow and safety, parking and loading. And I believe, just as a question for Matt or Ben, I believe also on C1 is shown, I was looking at it, but I couldn't find a designation for the key R1-1. I believe those are showing the stop signs and stop lines as requested by GCG. Is that right?
Yes.
There seemed to be a bunch of them between the two properties, so.
And that's like a standard designation, so that's kind of.
Oh, the R1-1?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I don't put up too many of those.
I don't know too many of them, but I know that one.
Okay. Single family homes, I usually don't put up stop signs, so. Okay. Again, in C starts to talk about the sewer pipe and the enzyme feed station, which again will come in conditions 2 and 3, where those things are discussed in detail. In 4, we talk, among other things, about preserving and protecting the existing berm with the tall trees that are there, as well as adding additional screening. Yeah, I think those are the things that I wanted to highlight there. Any other comments from special permit criteria?
The that section on the fiscal impact, I'm not sure we're ready to don't think we had enough time to vet the numbers. I did get some back and forth with Peter because when the original economic impact goal for the town had outdated information, and I got an email back and forth with Peter that this was, I think some of this was based on a simpler version that him and Emma were working on, but well, I'm not entitled to vote on this, so I'm not signing it, but I would not feel comfortable without some more vetting of the numbers if they're being put here.
I understand what you're saying. I'm wondering if we can put something in the language, because I think these numbers, yeah, I mean, we have the tool. We're just starting to understand and use the tool. So if we can put something in the language that expresses that ambiguity, then I think that for me would accurately describe where we are with it. Does anyone else on the board have a comment on that?
No, I feel the same as you, Tricia. If we were to add the language, I couldn't understand everything. I think on my computer, Kate, you were breaking up a little bit, so I didn't get the gist of the whole thing. But yeah, the tool is not I don't know if we're gauging that would be it would be able to foretell what exactly is going to be. So I'm not sure the level of accuracy that we're expecting, if that's what I believe, Kate, what you were concerned about. Did I get that right?
Not exactly. I don't think we've had the actual tool. I think if it's consistent, we understand we could use. I don't think we're there yet, I guess, is on this particular item.
But so could we just clarify what the source of this analysis is? Because that's how it came about, right?
Just to jump in, we did have a tool. It was out of date. The consultant that's working on the project ran the numbers for us, kind of gave us these ballpark estimates. Gave us some exact numbers. We took those out of the decision. On the other hand, Emma and I have been working on simplifying a more simple tool. That's what I kind of shared. That's what I shared with Kate today. And I kind of just rounded the numbers off to give every kind of to broadly paint, broad strokes on if this project is going to be net positive and what those numbers are for the town. If we would like to change this, that's fine. But I think we just, that's the backstory of where this is coming. The one hard number that I can tell you that rings true is that this past fiscal year, I got that number from our tax collector's office. The Thacker company, the current owner of this property, paid $20,000 in taxes. And that is correct down to the dime. That I was able to receive from the treasurer collector's office.
I think in the second paragraph of that, there's a lot of language that says estimated, roughly, anticipated. In the first paragraph, maybe it's adding, it says using the town's economic development tool, the fiscal impact of the described project maybe is projected to be instead of is, right? So is projected. So again, we're putting in a qualifier. The project is forecasted. It's estimated 225 new residents. So there's a lot of, I think, fluffy language in there to say that these aren't exact numbers in my mind.
But the school one, if you take 215,000 divided by the 26 students, I mean, I think that's much lower than we actually spend.
I think I'm not sure about that. I thought
that's 8,269 per student.
I thought Jim's answer to that was kind of like it's really, but I'm not sure.
Well, and that's my point. So we agree, right? If you take the total that Ashland spends divided by the number of students, if you get more students, we don't pay a new superintendent salary. So that's why those numbers need to be scrubbed. But I don't know that it's as low as 8,200 per student, which is what that data is saying.
So let me take it out.
I'm not sure. I mean, to me, it's not, it's kind of using the tool that we have. So these numbers came from, about this cost of schools came from where, Peter?
I just did a round multiplication and kind of, I obviously, you know, they're not hard numbers at the end of the day. It's
Right.
an estimate, right? And so, you know, you take what you have, and you're rounding it up. Obviously, I think if you calculate, I think you pay about $13,000 per pupil right now with the school budget, you know, but you don't want to get, I think from our last conversation is that we didn't want to get into hard numbers. We were just making estimates around numbers. And so what I did is I kind of looked at them, I did the calculations, and I just kind of not casually, but I just kind of back of the envelope math, made some conservative estimates, you know, that forecasted, some standards.
So
if that's the case, we can just say based on 8,200 per student times 26 students, it's an estimated cost of 215,000. And if we're comfortable with that, then leave it. I do not believe that 8,200 is enough, though, if you look at the statistics.
So, Peter, you had said 13,000 per student, right?
I can grab the exact number right now.
I think Jim Adams told us that number. I remember
Okay.
it was a
Yeah, it's
13,000
about
change.
that's what it is. Yeah, no, it's
but in that, and I don't know what other numbers go into that. 20 kids at 13,000 is 260,000, right? So there is a point to be made there.
so may change this from 215 to 260 to 250, 270, you know.
Well, 26 kids. So yeah, so if we're going, the project is forecasted to having 20 and 26 school-age children to the Ashland school system. And you put period, right? Using a cost of 13,000 per student. Does someone out there have, maybe it's not muted and we're hearing background? Someone shouting in the background? Okay, using a cost of, instead of for, using a cost of $13,000 per student. There would be an estimated total cost of 260.
To 338.
To $338,000. And you can take that last part out.
The whole thing?
Just that part.
Okay.
And so that net is probably down it could be, I don't know, it could be down $50,000 or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not.
Would we be better off leaving that part out? I think it's good data, right? Starting to get more detailed. The project is estimated to raise an estimated $5,000. So that's I think just word that unadjusted property tax estimated to raise $500,000, period. Get rid of the next part about the net. And then ongoing employment, I'm not sure where we got that, but maybe we're not sophisticated enough to be talking about that either, and get rid of that. And if we are, leave it in.
Well, I assume if there's some employees having to do with the building, then there's some obviously employees that would be working at the various places. We don't know. It's anticipated. It's a guess, right? We could guess one. Well, that would be.
And I think I feel like we're in the language we're saying that it's an estimate. I mean,
yeah, I think so too.
Kind of splitting hairs here on whether the estimate is good by 1 or by 3. I mean, there will be some employment as far as a commercial and enterprise is concerned, right? I don't know if it's estimated on a per square foot basis or what have you, or per establishment.
I think at this point I think there's no way we can come up with an exact number for anything, high or low, right? You're always taking it's always going to be an educated guess. So,
once these type of projects enter in operation in the town, that's where the real test is going to be. It's almost forensic analysis if we're how right we were.
Mm-hmm. So are we comfortable with this language? Is it soft enough to give some information about the fiscal impact, though not pretending that we can predict the future about what it's actually going to do? Peter, are you intending to raise your hand? Oh, okay.
After this conversation, I see a 30-second personal break. So
okay.
I just have to move a child into a crib.
Okay. So are we good with this then in general?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I don't know the others.
All right. I'm good.
I think there's enough qualifiers in there that we're just trying to put out what information we think we have.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, Peter, take your 30, or maybe he already has. All right, if you guys want to look ahead just to Pond Street mixed use overlay district criteria. If you have it open, it really, by this point, this is our third kind of round of criteria, and really it gets kind of repetitive. You're putting in things that you've already, all the things talk about the use, the traffic, the character of the neighborhood. So these things have already been mentioned. I'm trying to see if there's anything different. In my mind, I don't think there's anything different in this section that wasn't in the other criteria.
Number 5 there.
Yep.
I don't love the wording where we say this will be a defining project for the visual identity of Pond Street. I think the district intends to have more open space, and this is getting an exception to that in favor of affordable housing. I think ideally the visual identity of Pond Street would be not maximizing the lots and set a little further back from the road.
I agree that we could just take that line out completely, because I don't think we've ever talked about that.
Yeah, that's the only place I saw it.
Yeah, no, and I don't.
I'm sorry, I'm back. Thank you, everybody.
See, Peter, we are on the next set of criteria. We're on number 5.
Yeah.
And I think we want to take out the sentence unless someone else wants to jump in. This will be a defining project for the visual identity of Pond Street. That's not language that we actually have, kind of right in the middle. Yep. It actually doesn't say much. It says like, well, what is the visual identity? You know? So.
I just see somebody coming back with another application in the future saying, reference this project that you said was the visual identity.
Yep.
Why don't you like it anymore?
Great.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Great point.
Fine,
Yeah.
Kevin.
Out. Okay. Anything else in Pond Street mixed use overlay district criteria? If not, we'll go on to the waivers, which I think are more straightforward. At least
Does
we.
number 8 have a typo? Just
Oh, sorry.
Number 8,
Uh-huh.
Pond Street mixed use overlay district. I think that's just a typo.
Pond Street. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it should be Pond Street MU instead of UM. And you have to get rid of that first U there. Okay. All right, so this is a section, again, I tried to really clarify. These are the things that yeah, the waivers that we're dealing with. I believe there's 5. The first 4 have to do a special permit, and the last one is site plan review. So the density is just going from what the general density is, which is the 90 units, going up to 120 units, which is allowed under the district for things for affordable housing. So getting us to the 25% affordable. So that describes that. The tree plantings is something we talked about, that there's most of the parking spaces and the trees are in the locations as described by the bylaws, but there's a few areas where it wasn't possible to get the trees in with the parking, though the number of trees exceeds the maximum. In general, it's just that they can't get them in the areas that the bylaw calls for. The parking space dimensions, we've obviously gone over at different times. So this is the 9x18 parking, and the site plan shows that they all have a 24-foot aisle. Mm-hmm. Under GCG, they were suggesting the 9x20 with a 22-foot aisle. So in a sense, it's a 2-foot difference. Mendez had the 19x20. I don't remember what the aisles were. The high school has 9x18. So, but anyway, we had voted on that before, and we decided that we were okay with the 9x18. And we had talked about going back and revisiting it at some point in our bylaws to see what we really want that number to be. The loading area is where we put the 2 parking spaces together to allow for that drop-off area in front. And that was this parking spot D. And then the storm management was about that nutrient removal aspect of it. That's now I can't quite remember what it entailed, but it didn't. Peter, you might have to refresh my memory.
The nutrient removal. So it's just because this is not an open air basin, there's no really way to get the nutrient, the removal. But this basin's gonna be underground. All the stormwater is in the parking lot underneath. And the big thing here is that the system does use Atlas 14, which is the new data that has been, that the Conservation Commission has always, is now requiring from every application. And that this system can handle the 1-inch rainfall as designed.
So basically, this is using the standards requested or by the Ashland Conservation Commission, and the bylaw, I'm not sure, but the bylaw may not be up to date with that. Is that, because that chapter 343 is our own bylaw.
Correct. And actually, just a note, the Conservation Commission has just within the last 2 months updated this to Atlas 14 data rainfall. And so we have not updated our bylaw to this. The Conservation Commission did update their rules and regulations, which they can do as posted in a public hearing. And so in this case, the applicant, Mr. Trask Development, has obliged by the Conservation Commission's new rules and regulations. And I think that's really the most important thing here.
Okay.
But one thing I still didn't understand about this, trying to go back to the GCG, is we had 2 notes about stormwater. And one was that stormwater management requires no increase of stormwater runoff volume for the post-development in comparison with pre-development conditions. It was my understanding that that's what they need a waiver from us for. And this other suspended solids thing is a Concom issue. But I could be reading this wrong. I'm still confused who's writing in what color on this GCG thing.
If I could.
Please.
Basically what it's saying is you, in your bylaw, you have total suspended solids removal, which mirrors what the conservation stormwater permit says. But in addition, the zoning bylaw has a reference to nitrogen and phosphorus removal as a goal, with the presumption that if the system is designed using best management practices, the goal of the system is being achieved. Now, because we have a completely 100% underground system, we have no opportunities to remove nitrogen or phosphorus because they have to be in an open pit, open detention basin. So the best management practices, as GCG pointed out, would be to increase the size of the system to 100% handle the 1-inch rainfall. And then we actually increased it, I think, for the 5-year, the 10-year, and the 25-year storm as well. So that's kind of that last comment from GCG was because the system size increased, that sort of represents the trade-off because we don't have the ability to remove nitrogen or phosphorus because we're an underground system. But it probably isn't even a waiver in our thoughts reading the language, but it's a little ambiguous in the zoning code. So we felt like as long as it was addressed through the commission, the Conservation Commission, and through GCG, that we'd be comfortable sort of across the board on that.
And the Conservation Commission has approved the stormwater management system, correct, Peter?
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and so how does that relate to this post-development versus pre-development runoff? You're containing everything within the site, or is there runoff? I remember there being a culvert that like outfalls to Hudson Moore kind
of. What we've had to do, the commission asked us to reduce to essentially, and I might have this slightly off, is there's always you're basically you're decreasing the runoff in the 1 year, the 5 year, the 10 year, the 25 year, the 50 year, and I believe even the 100-year storm, we're decreasing. There will be runoff. There's runoff now, but you're decreasing the what's going there now, essentially, in all of those storm cases.
Okay, so that has been, some change was made to correct that, because their initial comment was that you weren't doing that.
I think we lost some translation with them a month ago because Concom asked us to do that. So we had done that. We closed our permit with conservation about, I don't know, 6-8 weeks ago. And they had already asked us to do that. So I just think there was some translation back and forth with GCG catching up to what we had already done to satisfy the Ashland Conservation Commission.
Right, and the way their note reads is that the bylaw is different. So I guess that's where I'm confused. Is we need to meet the bylaw, and you also need to meet whatever Conservation Commission wants.
Peter, is that the difference that we're
I
talking
don't
about?
get where it's one or the other.
Yeah, I think the bylaw needs to be updated to clarify and to be clarified and to work with the Conservation Commission. I think that's where the confusion is. And so I think there's a rub there. There's a rub there, obviously. But the bottom line is, speaking with Mike Carter, GCG, speaking with them, is that the system has been designed appropriately that satisfies the stormwater management of the site, most importantly through COMCOM with NOAA 14 rainfall data, which is current data. The other data, which would be the state data, is really data from the 1960s and 1970s. And so that's the difference between what some projects use and then obviously NOAA Atlas 14 rainfall data. So it's good just to note we are using the most up-to-date rainfall data to design the system.
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, as long as Concom approved it, they're the ones who know about this stuff. Maybe they're one of those people that we get on our list of when we have free time to talk with them about some of this stuff, because it's a little over my head.
I agree, Kevin. There's these things that we're running into that seem to be in conflict that we're having to deal with, and it's beyond, our kind of level of expertise. But I think that if the Conservation Commission has approved the stormwater management plan, then that's kind of been the basis of how we've been doing things in the past. Like if they've approved their expertise, then I'm okay with it. So is everyone comfortable moving forward, or is there still some question about this?
I think I'm good.
Okay. All right, so this gets us to the special project conditions. So again, these are conditions that are not present in every project. And so this is where we kind of go into detail about these things. Let's see, I think we have 13 special conditions, but some of them are fairly simple. The first one obviously is about the affordable units. I think we went through this language a meeting or two ago to make sure that it talked about the how it related to the Department of Community Development and their definition, that they go to perpetuity, some of the details there. I'm thinking. Yeah, so the location and use is where we have talked about they're affordable at 80% AMI. And we don't have that here, which is something we could add in. I know Kate had done some, I think, work on this section, so we could put 25% of the shall be affordable at 80% AMI, just to make sure it's clear in this section. Might be a good thing to add in. It'd be an appropriate place for it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
could say or lower, just in case, crossing our fingers and somebody gets a grant and makes it available to less than.
All right. We can do that. Next on that list is here's the two things that I was referring to throughout the other criteria, the sewer connection and the sewer system feed station. The sewer connection, I think both of these were really worked out through the DPW, and the language came from them and Lisa Mead. Is that correct, Peter?
Yeah, this language came from our consultant, our sewer water consultant,
Okay.
Greg Eldridge. Not Lisa Mead, but it's been worked out with DPW, Dan Mauer, water sewer superintendent, Doug Small, DPW director, and obviously also the applicant has been aware, and this language has been shared with them.
So one question I had asked was about this sewer system feed station. I was wondering if this is something we had to kind of screen on the exterior, but apparently it is actually something inside the building. So the DPW needs access to the inside of the building in order to maintain the system. So there's nothing on the outside that needs to be screened or anything like that. It's invisible. So anyone have any questions? It was very interesting reading. Does anyone have any questions about those items? If not, we can go on.
It was DPW and Lisa Mead that approved them, there's no kind of conflicts I haven't seen, there was some drawings at one point on some of that, and I don't know if maybe it doesn't need that, but I just wanted to raise that issue.
Peter, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure I was correct in adding Lisa Mead in there. Was she a part of the language, or?
No, this was done by Greg Eldridge.
Oh, Greg Eldridge. Okay.
Yeah, Greg Eldridge is our water sewer consultant. He's worked with the town for 25 years.
Okay.
He has been out, he's met with Trask. They were at the beginning stage of this project. They were doing sewer and water flow tests. And so he's been part of this conversation for a long time.
So does it say that the applicant's installing that, or we're installing for the applicant because this project needs? I'm a little confused now that I see that again, that sewer system feed station.
So I think that they're going to work with us to make that connection. So what it is, it's just an outlet into the sewer, so we can put enzymes into the sewer and let them work their way down. Because this is the end of the line, this is an ideal space, indoor spot for us to have access to that. And so I think, so I think what we're saying is, Ashland will maintain, but the applicant's going to give us some space in the building to create this outlet into the system.
I think, is that the feed system or the sewer connection?
The feed system.
I believe Kate was talking about the sewer connection.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, the sewer system feed station, it talks a lot about what it is. So it's the town is doing it and they're giving us real estate to do it on their property. That's
correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have other questions about the sewer system, Kate, or was it really, that was the question?
Well, the other went back, there were drawings at one point. If they don't make to be part of it because we think the language is adequate, I'm fine. But I know there were some drawings at one point about that.
I don't know, I'm hesitant to refer to drawings that may or may not be up to date.
Well, me too. My point is, if we need drawings, then we should have up-to-date drawings. And if we don't need them because it describes it adequately, then it's fine.
Well, not even the building drawings are complete, right? So
that's off-site, that work. This was a drawing that our sewer consultant had, I think. So you could probably refer to that and say connect from manhole 3 to manhole 4, or whatever it is that needs to be done. Or, I mean, it does say at the end of the note that you don't get an occupancy permit till it's done. So you say just add the satisfaction of the sewer department or something like that. I think it's just so
I think that
someone's
makes
signing
us-
off on it.
Yeah, that makes it straightforward. If the authority that permits this system signs off on it, I mean, we're not going to be reviewing this. I mean, this is a very specific system.
So I think just maybe change and shall meet the satisfaction or meet or be at the satisfaction. I don't know quite what the meet the
Discretion, maybe?
what's that?
Should be that discretion of Ashland Water and Sewer Department versus satisfaction.
I think it should be what acceptance, right? Once the authority accepts
Okay.
or signs off on
Shall be approved.
Just keep it
Yeah.
shall be,
Yeah.
or shall be accepted. You don't have-
Yes, as soon as it's accepted by the authorities and signed, I mean, the system is properly installed.
So Peter, I think you're changing the satisfactory to satisfaction. And shall meet the satisfaction and acceptance. Or meet the,
Can we just say and shall be accepted?
let's do that.
Water
And
and
shall
sewer
be
department.
accepted. And then get rid of everything to the, yeah, right there. Yep. All right. I think the next condition is the water main. This is actually just a check. The DPW wants to confirm the existence and location of a water main, so they want to be able to do that while the construction is going on. Isn't that right, Peter? They're just checking to make sure, verifying that something is there.
Yep, that's his verification.
So, water pressure, this is probably true for every project, but any upgrades are at the applicant's expense. The next one is the tree and berm protection. It's just to protect the existing berms and trees during construction and to maintain them afterwards.
Yeah, does it say anything about maintaining afterwards?
Well, it says protect and maintain, and in various criteria, we talked about it as well.
I think we need something about replacing if they're damaged too. I mean, they're installing a sewer line underneath these trees.
I think that's a good point. I think as long as we can put there that any impacted or damaged tree shall be replaced in kind.
Right, and we're also, paving a parking lot right next to them. I know they're in a raised berm, so hopefully the parking lot won't be cutting off the root ball from water and affecting them in the long term, but it maybe even should be a couple of year monitoring period. I know those trees were like the most important thing we heard from the neighbors.
Yeah,
So-
unfortunately, they are higher on the berm, but I think, yeah, if they are impacted, I think it's worth putting it in.
So Peter, after condominiums, Kevin, can you give us a sentence?
I guess any trees damaged during construction will be replaced in kind the same height of existing.
With similar height?
Yeah. And I don't know what we can do after the fact, but you know, that's their one snow storage area is like jammed up underneath these trees. So I don't know if we have any teeth to go after them after the occupancy permit is issued anyways. So I don't know what it does there, but it'd be nice to be able to watch how these perform in a year or two after construction. And I just don't know what means the town has to actually do that. Maybe that's a Peter question.
There should be a monitoring period for 2 years.
Occupancy permit?
Mhm. How about that?
There's only one occupancy permit, so you can take off the S. Yep.
PHERE.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I like that better. Thank you.
All right, the surety bond is the same as in 100 Chestnut Street.
Yes, it's the exact same language that we use for Chestnut Street and also the inspection fund, which would be the 53G.
The parking control was something that was added that was similar to 100 Chestnut Street. There was no request for less parking here, but it still makes sense, I guess, if the parking lot is too crowded, that a system is put in place, or if the parking lot is abused in some way by other businesses. Number 10 again talks about the energy system being used. So we may just may need to update that again after commercial spaces. Right there, yep. Commercial spaces and residential common areas. So, I know that we have what we had for sustainability, if the solar panels are fine as they are, if we need to.
We already touched that before, isn't it?
It was that paragraph before was in sustainability. If we want to copy and paste the sustainability one to here, they'll be the same.
Can we refer to the paragraph so we don't have to repeat it, or is it better to repeat it?
Before we changed the other one, they were identical. So, yeah, so we wouldn't be copying this one. Yeah, we'd be putting the other one in its place. I think that's just the easiest thing to do right now.
Okay. Okay.
So that it's in the condition, because it's a special condition. And we were listing things in sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
There it was. Yeah.
Keep going by.
No, I think you need to go up. It's right after building and use or location and use. Okay, so now go down. There's sustainability. Slow, slow, slow. Keep going. Right there at F. But you didn't take it out. You're just copying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then 12 and 13 are pretty self-explanatory, I guess.
Just sorry for going back to that solar panel. So we are still keeping the timeline, right?
Yes, the last line
Okay,
shall install solar
okay,
panels. Yep, that's still in there. Yep.
Sorry, thank you.
Nope, no problem. Yes, and the other two are pretty obviously just self-explanatory. They need to provide those two things and abide by them. The other parts of well, first of all, does anyone have any other questions about the special conditions? There were a
thing about the WUNRF and its use as public space, like defines who somebody from the town would call if they wanted to go there and, have a food truck or something. Or is that kind of spelled out elsewhere?
I think there's, if we want it in there, I think there's, because it is a special aspect of the project. I think, I'm looking in our criteria. We probably don't spell it out to any great. I think all we say is that the WUNRF will be public-private outdoor space which will promote activities and gatherings for the larger civic community. I feel like there was more, but now I'm looking at where it was. Oh, here. So if we want to, we can take Pond Street mixed use overlay, Pond Street mixed use overlay district criteria, item item 2.
I'm sorry, Trisha, where
you need to go way up. Wait to the criteria for the Pond Street overlay district.
It's about page 10.
Too far up. page 10, if that helps. Okay, and item 2. Right there, finding. So if you copy the finding. Yep. And if we want to add that in as a condition, that says the Wooners will be created as a public-private open space and thus will be open for the public and for casual gatherings or organized events. Building management will moderate the use of the space for proposed events. Future events may include food trucks parking in the Wooners. Is that good or neat?
I think that covers it. That kind of just memorializes that, you know, if you have somebody from the town called building management and set up an event. I'm not sure how the corner spot works like that, if there's a group that manages it, but.
Yeah, there is
The
actually.
current spot is not, the current spot is not
Right, I know it's all
property.
owned separately, right?
So
Yeah.
by the town, yeah.
All right, I think that's a good call because that is a very special feature of this project. Yeah, if you haven't saved recently, Peter, make sure you're saving.
Just did it, yeah.
So the rest of this is general project conditions that are exactly the same as in the other project. They're really basic. They're really, you know, basic thing, dumpster pickup and meeting with town staff, things like that. The only things I think that are different is for number 11. If you want to scroll down to number 11, all I said was to note special project condition number 4, which is where the DPW wants to check the water main, because it related to that special condition. And I also put in our general conditions it's in this number 4 under the first topic, building and site design. I added in this, instead of having it in a special project condition, I had it in about how the dumpster and rubbish area should be fully enclosed. We had that in there before, but the screening system shall exceed the height of the dumpster, which is something Kate had talked about. So now it's not just in this one, but it'll be in all of our decisions because it's general condition. So things like that. Oh, and then I added in about the snow as a general condition, that if any excess snow has to be hauled away by the applicant at their expense. So that these are now a part of our general conditions and not a special condition. Just means they get automatically put in every project unless we take it out.
It's a good idea.
But I just wanted to note those because those were things that I moved down into that general section. Okay. Those were the things, like I said, I had received everything that I had asked for. I believe everyone else, if there was any other documentation we were waiting for, I hadn't heard about it. Is there anything that would prevent us from closing the public hearing at this time?
Not in my case.
Not in my head as well.
Peter, at this point, we have just to make sure everything's, we have had public comment obviously multiple times. We don't need to open it up again tonight, do we?
I don't, if anybody, you can open up if anyone cares to speak. I don't know if anybody's on the call for this one tonight.
I guess I mean, Kate, how do you feel about that? I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you like to open it up for any?
I personally think that it's what the right thing to do. I don't think there's a lot of new people. I'm not sure you'll get any, but I don't think the harm in that. I would support that 100%.
All right, then at this time, I will open it up for public comment. Please raise your hand if you would like to comment on this project.
I don't see any hands going up.
All right. Seeing none, I will entertain, that means I am looking for someone else to make the motion. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing for 501 Pond Street.
I'll make a motion, Tricia, to close the meeting for 501 Pond Street at this time.
I close the public hearing. And is there a second?
Second.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Marcelo Rona, aye.
Catherine Jersey guy.
Okay,
And Tricia Kendall, aye. Okay, so obviously, so now is the time we would go into discussion about the project. Peter, I see Mark's hand up, but we have now closed the public hearing.
I have a procedural matter I'd like to discuss.
Mark, please.
Yeah, just in case we're moving toward a vote, Madam Chairwoman, I just want the vote to reflect that there should be 2 abstentions. Ms. Tominski is one and Ms. Jerzyk is the other, simply because they haven't sat in on the requisite number of hearings.
Yes, and
that's correct, but I think it's actually, when I saw the situation, that it's not abstain, it's absent. I am not eligible to vote on this project. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Anna Tesmaniski is an abutter, so she has recused herself from the whole proceedings. So that said, we still have a 4-member board. But thank you. Obviously we have been discussing all of these points. I guess I would be looking for feedback from the board if we are prepared with the changes made, with the documents we have requested, which Peter will have at our disposal. Is there any further discussion we have amongst ourselves, because no one else is allowed in the discussion? And then how does the board feel about voting on this evening? Any comments from Marcelo, Kevin?
I just have a couple of comments. I do feel comfortable that we should vote on this project. It's been a long process, and we've discussed everything from top to bottom. I would say that as a process, especially with the unique importance of this project to start that corridor that the town voted for, I want to thank the applicant and their team, because I think there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of requests that were carefully studied, and I'm pleased, and I hope it's an example that for future projects, especially on that corridor, that creating these public private areas where the town can really benefit from an entire corridor is important, and I hope that keeps happening and other applicants have the same attitude towards the town.
Thanks, Marcelo. Any other members of the board want to weigh in? So weighing in on any further discussion we have and readiness to vote on the project.
I did see we got the last design review response or something later today, so I was just trying to I blew through it real quick because I think it came through today.
It did.
If I can have 5 more minutes to read it,
Okay.
I'd be to vote. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody else has seen it, if anything was glaring. But
this is a document I've gone through a couple times, but please keep looking at it. And that I thought the points had been explored in our discussion, and we went through them, I think, in some of the meetings, or I brought up points. But because we have started the tradition, I believe, with 100 Chestnut Street about having the applicant answer directly to the meeting minutes of the design review committee, I ask that they put those thoughts in writing so that that becomes just part of what we do, part of our process. And that's why that was done. Deepa, do you have any further thoughts?
No, I think I'm ready to vote. And thank you, Tricia, for kind of taking that extra step for asking the applicant to really respond to the DRC comments, because it's important for the team to know that they have been read through and action has been taken. So thank you for closing that loop.
Well, I think as we go forward, obviously with every project, we're going to make this process hopefully more consistent, better, smoother. But it's kind of going to be, I think we made great leaps in these past 2 projects, but it's just making it a little bit better each time. So.
So what is the next step, Tricia or Peter?
I'm stalling a little bit while Kevin has a chance to read.
Oh, that's right.
just skimming it on the other screen.
Hey, we could take a 2-minute break, or whatever, to not put pressure on Kevin.
It looks to me like everything was closed out. I mean, remembering most of these as I skimmed through, we discussed them ourselves. I think I'm good with the list.
Okay. So, Kate, did you have any further comments? I know you're not eligible to vote, but that doesn't mean you don't have something to say.
No, mostly because I'm not voting. So I think I
Okay.
appreciate that I was able to participate in conditions and all of that. And so, yeah, with that, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so if the board is ready, and if the board is ready, I will entertain a motion we need to do these in 2 parts. Entertain a motion to approve the 501 Pond Street special permit. And then
I'll make a motion to approve the 501 Pond Street special.
Is there a second?
Second that.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
And aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So that is a vote of 4-0-0, which passes. And then I will entertain a motion to approve the 501 Pond Street site plan review.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve 501 Pond Street site plan review.
And a second?
Second that.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
McLean, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So that passes 4-0-0. So Peter, I would ask you to, when the decision is ready to be signed, you not only have the set, the updated set available for review, or available for anyone who wants to see it, as well as these, as well as a highlighted version of these documents that maybe show the changes that we went through in this meeting. Is that possible?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay.
I saved all the track changes, and so I'll kind of work on that. And obviously, we have some time to file the decision, and hopefully, I know the TRAS team will be. I'll work with them to get the documents and go from there.
Yeah, so obviously the versions that we'll be signing will be clean copies, but if someone wants to refer to our discussion that we had today, that they're easily able to do so. Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Thank you
Then
very
I
much.
will say thank you to the applicant for your willingness to work with us through this process. And I think that is made for a much better product, and we go from here.
Thank you.
All right, so next on our agenda, and for those in our audience, we are in for a nice long meeting, which we so love as members of the planning board. Next on,
Anna, come back.
what's that? Oh, yes.
Anna.
Yes,
Already
Anna probably
already
has.
texted her. Yep.
You did, okay.
She is coming back in.
Okay, great. So next on our agenda is the 399 Union Street site plan review. This is continued from October 27th, but I think we've only talked about this project one time. This is the Starbucks project. And obviously we will not be getting, I will say to everyone right now, we will not be getting to any kind of decision on this project today, but it has been so long since we've seen it. I believe there are changes to the site plan. It has gone through design review committee already. And so, Peter, I assume the applicant is ready to give us an update presentation about where the project is now?
Yes. So the applicant did send a letter, but I think the applicant and through their attorney, Mr. Jerry Efron, is ready to give a quick presentation. And then also their site engineer, Scott Rogers, is on the call, along with the owner of the site, Mr. Greg Salvatore. I also would like to recognize, I believe, Emily Buck of McManus Transportation. And I may have been forgetting a few other members of their team, but I think Mr. Jerry Efron would like to give the planning board an update on where things have come since the first meeting. And so I think that will be the appropriate step.
I'm sorry, so who is taking over, Mr. Efron?
Thank you, Peter, Madam Chair, members of the board. Good evening. With me tonight is Greg Salvatore, the product owner, Scott Rogers, J.K. Holm, our design engineer, Gary McNaughton of McMahon Associates, our traffic engineer, Keith Betancourt of BKA Associates, our architect. We actually have seen you only once, and that was all the way back on August 25th of this year. Since then, we have spoken extensively to town staff, other public officials, town department heads. We have received and responded to 2 peer reviews, one from GCG, one from Euler Associates. We've been back and forth to each twice. We have appeared before the design review committee twice. At their last occasion, they closed the hearing. They had made some significant suggestions in their process, all of which were incorporated and are reflected in the site plan currently before you. In addition, we filed with the Conservation Commission. I'm informed that we have completed that work and are awaiting an order of conditions. As you may recall, when we appeared before you the first time, we had just received orally our special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Since that time, we have received the special permit. It was duly filed with the town clerk. The statutory appeal period passed. No one filed an appeal. That is now a final order of the Zoning Board of Appeals. With it, the applicant has been conferred with authorization to use the property, subject, of course, to all other town regulations, for a fast food Starbucks restaurant with a drive-through. I did prepare and had discussed with Peter filing a letter which I did yesterday, the purpose of which was simply to summarize as much as possible where we really were. And I'll just go over some of those points briefly before I turn it over to our engineer. Are you seeing me? I'm not seeing anyone.
We can see you and hear you, Jerry.
Oh, that's potentially unfortunate. The changes that we have made to the site plan since we saw you have been significant. I'm going to summarize them as follows and hit kind of the major points. The access via Union Street has been completely removed. Both the driveways on Union Street, the existing curb cuts that have been there for years, servicing the various pharmacies that have been on the site, will now be exit only. The sole entrance will be through the Summer Street entrance, and that's been widened to ensure proper and safe access for that purpose. The plans have been updated to show the conformity of these features. Do not enter signs and other signage has been modified to make clear where you can go in and where you can go out. In addition, the drive-through queuing and parking area improvements have been incorporated on the plans. A new queuing plan was created after feedback from the consultants with a new parking area design. The major features of this are that the parking spaces themselves were revised to be larger. Those larger parking spaces conform specifically with the requirements of the bylaw and the recommendations of the consultant. That has resulted in the slight reduction of the amount of parking spaces, but there is still plenty of parking, not only for safe access, but also to comply with the zoning bylaw. That has given us an additional benefit, however, of now allowing for two-way traffic in and between the parking lanes, something that one of the consultants thought was extremely important. In addition, the bypass lane has been widened to allow for easier access for those cars that are not going to be waiting in line to order and or pick up food.
Can I interrupt a minute? Would it be kind of more beneficial for the board to have the site plan up in front of us so that we can actually see some of these things as they're being talked about?
Yes, except that the person who's really going to talk about them in a detailed fashion is Mr. Rogers, who will put the plan up. My points here, Madam Chair, is simply to give you an overview of the amount of significance of changes in only summary form, and I'm almost done.
Okay, thank you.
The lighting plan has been changed to now indicate that the lights will be dark sky compliant, will prevent spillover. The landscaping and erosion improvements have been incorporated into the plan, relating to more green space, less pervious surface. We also reduced some lawn area at the request of the Design Review Committee so as to use a little bit less water on the site. Stormwater improvements have been made. They've been incorporated both in the site plan and in the stormwater permit, and crosswalk improvements for access from Stone Park have now been implemented. You are correct by your summary in the beginning of this meeting that we're not where you were on the last product, but we certainly hope to get there. What we want to do tonight, with your permission, Madam Chair, and those of the board and members of the public, is to go over the details of the improvements and narrow down those issues that need to get resolved, which we hope to be able to do before the subsequent meetings. I think at this point, I would turn it over to Mr. Rogers, who will go through the site plan changes.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I have the ability to share my screen?
I have made you a co-host.
Thank you, sir. Can you see the screen here?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Jerry. For the record, my name is Scott Rogers from J.K. Holmgren Engineering. Just want to run through the things that Jerry had talked about in a little bit more detail, but not terrible amount of detail here. So overall, the traffic improvements that we did make, in addition to traffic report changes and improvements, we did have meetings with Ron Mueller Associates. Some of the major changes to the site plan regarding the traffic was the straightening of the drive-through lane. The older plan had some slight curves to it. We straightened that out in addition to widening that bypass lane, as Jerry had mentioned. The Summer Street exit at the drive-through, there was a stop sign and a stop bar that was added. In addition, there's a small
Is it
drop
possible
shaped.
to zoom in a little bit on those drawings?
Sure. So in addition, there's a teardrop shaped island at the drive-through exit along Summer Street that was added to help kind of channelize the cars as they're coming out of the drive-through, provide a more safe, more efficient intersection, if you will. On the easternmost access for Union Street, that was revised to become an exit only. And we made some changes to that exit. We reduced the width of that considerably. We added in some what has now become sloped granite curb as recommended by the traffic review engineer. In addition to that, we added in some grass pavers, which are called Arsenal Eco Pavers. We also made some significant changes to the overall site design, according to the review comments from GCG Associates. The queuing for the drive-through was basically the number that was agreed to was 13 cars for the queuing. And that was a recommendation. Mueller had said that somewhere between 11 and 13 cars was adequate for this particular facility. So we went with the 13 recommended number. A loading space was added to the plan over on the Summer Street side. And there's been some major redesign to the parking lot throughout the process that we've been going through here. As you might remember from the existing condition, the original plan that we submitted to you was to use the overall parking lot that's there now and basically restripe and use it to the best of our ability that with what's there currently. We have made several revisions to the parking area. We have reduced the parking number down, but we're way above the parking required by the zoning bylaw. We were able to restripe and reconfigure the parking spaces to be current to the 9-foot by 20-foot spaces that are required by the bylaw. I believe they're 9 by 18 currently. We also, there was or is currently on the site some one-way parking bays that have been reduced, are eliminated and turned into a two-way parking situation. So with all those changes to the parking area, the original site that exists now has about a 12% green space on site. And going back to about May, the green space was increased to about 17%. And then going back to October, the green space was increased to 22%. With the current plan before you tonight, the green space is just short of about 23% or 22.9% green space on site. We have been working with the fire department on truck turns, getting trucks in and around the site. One of the changes that was made was it was requested that we provide a truck turn showing a fire truck to get around the back of the building. So we provided that, and I had a conversation today with Captain Lynn Morahan. They seem to be satisfied with the truck turning plans that we provided to them. As far as the stormwater management system, it is an existing underground pipe and stone system. And with the improvements we've made to the parking lot overall and the overall site design, we have obviously decreased impervious considerably. We have increased green space. So the stormwater calculations that we ran show that the system is working adequately, and it'll be improved with those changes. We also did some major maintenance, the yearly maintenance that we do on these drainage systems. We cleaned out catch basins, got rid of the sediment and the sand that goes in there from winter sanding. We also cleaned out the vortex unit, which is the stormwater quality unit that is in the system prior to the infiltration system. That was cleaned out with a vac truck. So that was completed late summer. So with those improvements, the system will show a decrease in both stormwater volumes as well as peak runoff rates for the 2, the 10, the 25, and the 100-year storm events. With as in regards to lighting plans, we did make some changes to the lighting design. We've revised the lighting plan to go with LED lights. The light pole detail was revised per GCG comments that were received. And the lighting plan was revised to show shielding on the lights so that the lighting poles will have shields and there'll be no spillover to abutting property owners. So in regards to the landscape development for the project, we worked quite a bit with the Design Review Commission. So there were some new landscaped islands that were added, the ones I mentioned to you before along Union Street, as well as the one along Summer Street. There have been additional trees that have been added to the landscape plan. As was mentioned by Attorney Efron, the lawn areas were reduced considerably. Even though we have decreased the amount of pavement or impervious areas, there were a lot more lawn areas prior to this revision. We've reduced that down, put a lot more shrub areas with stone and or mulch beds. We have also increased and added a bunch more native plants, and we've added plantings around the transformer, which is on the eastern side of the proposed building by the drive-through in this area right here. So we've added screening to that transformer over there. The islands that are near the ADA spaces, those particular islands have been, again, more shrubs have been added to those and more mulch beds. And there's a decrease with the amount of grass as well as some additional trees in that specific area. So what I will call the apex, which is basically the V, if you will, between Union Street and Summer Street, quite a bit of revisions and improvements were made to that particular area in discussions with the consultants as well as the Design Review Commission and feedback we've gotten from various towns and commissions in the town. So we added, we increased the mound that's currently there to about elevation 101, which is about a foot higher than the existing mound that's on site today. We added more trees in this apex to help kind of frame the view, if you will. And we also have added what we're calling a pollinator habitat, which is that kind of triangular shaped area, if you will, in the apex, which has a hatch in it. So that's basically a meadow mix, which is a seed mix by the Ernst Seed Company, which will also obviously help to reduce further the lawn areas and the grass areas. We also added an additional shrub row at the edge of the parking closest to the apex, and that's going to include some native plants such as inkberry and mountain pieris, which will further help to reduce the visibility of the cars, help screen out those cars a little bit more. And it's going to improve the overall view of what I would call this view shed. And then in regards to sustainability and green initiatives, we do have Keith Betancourt from BKA Architects. If we need to discuss it, I can't remember if we discussed this before with you or if it was the Design Review Commission, but the architecture of the building does have several sustainability qualities to it, as well as Starbucks themselves have a considerable recycling program using recycled products, etc. It's a pretty robust program. In addition, as I mentioned, we are using native plants. The major reduction in the impervious from the existing condition is worth noting again, as well as the reduction in lawn areas, which will obviously help to reduce the amount of water that's used to, keep those lawns looking green. The revision and the change to the LED lighting is another one. The addition of that pollinator garden that I talked to you about, that's kind of a newer technique that we've been using. We're also proposing a new change to add an electrical conduit, which has been added, which will be for electric vehicles. So that'll be for a future car charging station. Also, the addition of the grass pavers on the easternmost Union Street exit. And those are called Arsenal Eco Pavers, which are grass pavers. And we have a bike rack system, which is up against the side of the proposed Starbucks as well. So essentially, kind of in closing here, we have taken a site that's over 20 years old, outdated from a lot of the technology that exists now. And we're improving with a lot more, modern technology techniques, also low impact development techniques, green initiatives, and we've considered sustainability quite a bit. So at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Attorney Efron.
Madam Chair, I don't know your pleasure on how to proceed, but if Peter knows, the status of this matter is we've gone back twice with each consultant and have responded to their latest revisions. I believe, Peter, if I'm correct, we're still awaiting something from GCG, which we expect, but we don't expect it to be earth-shattering based upon our last filing with them, and we've responded back to Mueller Associates after his last revision. We just got today, which we've absorbed, the DRC determination, and we had received their minutes prior to that and had an opportunity to review that. So I think we would potentially be best served, unless you want to hear something more affirmatively from any of the team members or myself or the applicant, to have the chair go through and see where we want to go from here.
Yeah, I think where we're at is that obviously we have seen this once several months ago. We know it has been doing extensive homework in the background, which we appreciate. So at this point, I think two steps. One is, first of all, I would like to open it up to the board for comments, questions, information requests, anything they would like to see. And after that, I will open it up again to the public for further feedback there. And then we'll go from there. So I think it's really just us absorbing what's been presented, getting some more questions out there, and then determining the direction that we're going to go. So that said, I am opening it up for questions and comments from the board. And I don't think there's anyone, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's anyone from the Design Review Committee here this evening. But Design Review Committee, if you are there, you are more than welcome to jump in as well. So comments from the board?
I have a few, Tricia.
Yeah,
All right,
go ahead.
No. Ladies first.
Don't be silly, Marcelo. I think we were speaking at the same time.
Well, Anna, we have been talking a lot without you, so we will let you use your voice.
You've missed me.
We have. So you're fresh. Let's have a fresh voice in there.
I have to say I was a little concerned. I didn't hear from you guys for hours. I missed you too. I'm glad everybody's okay. I'm back. So, my reaction to this, obviously, there's been a lot of homework, and I'm seeing a lot of kind of logistical changes on the site. Movement of traffic, et cetera. And I think these are helpful steps. My concern remain as far as what I had brought up in August. Number one, I think Starbucks has a very robust commitment to net zero. I believe Starbucks wants to reduce its footprint in numerous ways within the next 8 years by 2030 is what the Starbucks press releases talk about. And in the last 2 years, 2020, 2021, Starbucks as a company has done significant work. The example is the solar store in California, and I have some images of that store. At some point, I'm happy to show that to the board or the applicant, and I can certainly share my screen shortly. The Vancouver store, a very similar climate to our climate that has the net zero construction. Starbucks has a lot of experience in really getting us to net zero. I'm not seeing that level of robust vision here that I believe I mentioned vigorously in August. I'd love to see us come back to that. And like I said, I'm more than happy to share those images. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was the Starbucks press release last year when they opened up their Vancouver store. And looking at that particular graphic, Starbucks itself brought attention to the fact that buildings are responsible for more than 40% of carbon emissions. Starbucks took a lot of pride in its net zero construction, just like it took pride the prior year in its solar store. I'd like to see that in Ashland. I think it's time, and I think that would be really exciting in this location. The other thing that I recall discussing in August was the community link between this location and the surrounding area, if you will. We talked about that playground or community space across the street. Obviously, there's some discussion now of the seating areas inside, outside. I think a little bit more discussion on that would be really important to understand how this space intersects with the community. And those are my 2 comments.
Right. Thanks, Anna. Marcelo, did you want to jump in at this
Yes.
point?
Yeah, I have just 3 quick things. I like where Anna left it. First of all, I think in terms of the rearrangement of the site, I think it's nice that they are reorganizing the curb cuts. I think this setup is much better. Number 2, I was surprised on the resolution that is shown here for the Apex, as it's called. I think last time we met, there was several comments from Kathy and Anna, I believe, relative to making that Apex kind of a place of a connector with Stone Park or whatever, more for public use. I see that it was it turned into a landscape feature, which is fine. But I'm kind of I thought we're gonna see some type of place that the public could actually enjoy. But I guess I'm not against what's shown here. I'm just recalling what we said last time. The one part that I'm concerned about this plan is the arrangement of the parking that is adjacent to the building. We have a confluence there of the drive-through as cars go out, the adjacent lane where people may be coming around the other cars, and an entry and an exit to a dead-end parking spot, which if you're trying to guess if there's a parking spot over there and go into the car, other cars are coming out of that same place, cars are coming out of the drive-through, and then maybe there's no parking there, so you have to do a 3-point turn to go back out the same way you went in. It seems to me that it's a very complicated intersection there. I'm not sure how that has been analyzed by the traffic engineer or what have you. It doesn't seem resolved to me that there's no outlet or that there's no way to get out of it without creating a massive amount of delay and confusion with the people that are parking in and out. And I would like to hear about that. And lastly, just curious, the property line on the back, it seems to have a polygon there that extends beyond, and is completely black on this plan. Am I understanding correctly that is just left for greenery, or what is happening there? I would like to understand why nothing is shown or addressed triangular zones.
Someone from the applicant team want to address some of those questions?
Gary, do you want to address, Mr. Gary, do you want to address the comments concerning the parking?
Sure. Yeah, and I think you're mostly talking about the area at the exit from the drive-through, and then at the end of that parking aisle, so where the stop line and stop words are on the exit from the drive-through. So in that area, what we've looked at is overall, the volume coming through the drive-through, it's metered. They can only serve a vehicle so quickly coming out of there. And then when you look at the overall amount of traffic on the site, yes, that is a point of confluence amongst those various vehicles, but the volume and the speed at which they're going through there is going to be controlled. It's not like an intersection on a roadway where folks are coming through without any sort of restrictions on them. They'll be coming through at a much lower volume and lower speed than they would elsewhere. The alignment, bringing that stop line out gives good visibility for folks coming around the building and folks, to see those cars coming out of that parking area. So we're comfortable that overall, that area will work well. Some of the other changes that have been implemented on the site to restrict the number of access points, help to organize it in a fairly cohesive manner so that those movements can happen safely through that area.
I guess I believe what you're saying, but I think my main point of concern was the dead end nature of that parking area. And when people start going in and they don't find parking for whatever reason, getting out of it, if the parking is full, unless you take the handicap areas to go and turn around, it's pretty cumbersome.
Yeah, specific to that, you're right. There is no turner. I mean, there is the dent at the end, the indent at the end, which is really for getting out of spaces. It is unlikely that you would have all of those spots filled, including the 4 handicap. So, you certainly can use one of those available spots to turn around in most instances. Trying to provide any sort of connection through or anything else that would allow folks to get out of that area, I think would create different problems, interrupting the drive-through lane and the like, that may cause more problems than it solves.
I think this is a similar situation, though not identical, to the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot on 135. In the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, you can loop around all around the drive-through and kind of escape if there's no parking spaces.
Yeah.
But I think very few people do that. I think people.
You back out.
Yeah.
And you safely enter the traffic line, frankly, because you can see pretty well. And I think you're going to be able to see pretty well here.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I'm trying to think about that,
But you have the option.
Yeah, you do have
Here
the
you
option.
don't.
That's right. You do have the option.
And we have worked with the town's consultant, Ron Mueller, on this specific issue, and I believe he's satisfied with this one.
I think it's just a valid question, as you had noted that you have more parking spaces than you need, and I understand it's good to have those parking spaces. Is there a possibility to have a designated, and maybe someone would just park there, I don't know, but a designated area that is for turning around, like an empty parking space? I'm just asking the question because I'm imagining myself going down there and needing to turn around when I can't find a space.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak to the site layout, but that is a feasible alternative if you convert one of the end spaces, just hatch it out as a no parking area. Doesn't mean somebody would never park there, but at least you could do that and give that ability for somebody to turn around if needed.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead. Sorry, Marcelo.
No, something like that would probably. I see if there's no other way to lay this out, to provide an outlet, a solution like that would be probably okay. People will end up using the parking, the handicap areas if they're not occupied for that also. It's just a byproduct of this arrangement.
We should note that there currently is a turnaround area at the end of that dead-end parking lot for vehicles to back in and turn around.
But that's only if you're already in a spot.
Yeah, but it's only for the last 2 spots.
I think the solution could be if you could hatch that area out, that one spot out, that may address the concern. And then somebody could use that and the bump out area to be able to turn around and not have to back out of that parking area.
Yeah, I think
that would make sense.
And what were your other questions?
I was curious about the polygonal area on the back of the lot.
So the area in the back of the building, you can see, there's the drive-through lane and the bypass lane. And you can see there's a tree line back there with a retaining wall and a fence. So that area back there is essentially wooded. And it's not to be changed, or it's basically going to stay as it is, but that's in a wooded area. It's also in the buffer zone to a wetland that's on the north side of the property. So in working with conservation, we determined that we don't plan on doing any work back there. We'd like to leave that natural as a buffer to the neighbors, as well as the buffer to the actual wetland back there.
Okay. I think that's great.
All right. Any other questions, Marcella?
No, I'm all set. Thanks.
Kate, Kevin?
I would just, I guess it's the benefit of going later. I said the first time ditto, so ditto to Anna and Marcelo's comments. I know maybe it's with this and other things, a lot of things came flying in during the week, and I do not have a lot of time to look, but I believe the last thing I saw from the consultant had many open issues. I started highlighting them, and I believe that have been answered since I received that, but I have not looked. So there was a lot of things open. So I think those definitely need to be addressed.
Are you referring to the letter from Ron Mueller?
I don't know. Possibly, yes, I think, but there definitely were open issues that needed to be addressed.
Yes, so there was a letter from Ron Mueller, and Emily Buck from our office is also on the line, and she's been working with me and Ron to resolve those. I think his original letter had about 29 comments. We resolved probably 22 or 3 of those that were noted as resolved in his revised letter that came in. We actually got it middle of last week, just before the holiday. And we're down, and we've since talked to Ron earlier this week and walked through the resolutions to the remaining comments that he had. Comment, I think 16 was one that was just a misunderstanding about what speeds we were using for sight lines. And I think that really wasn't much of an issue anyways, but we worked out, clarified where everybody stood on that one. And then he had a few others that were talking about, if I may, comment 21 that was talking about using the bypass and changing the access to the easterly, and let me just circle it, access in here, which was both entrance and exit, and we've modified that. He had a comment that there was originally a sign that was placed in this corner that needed to be relocated. So we've moved that sign because that could be needed as an emergency access. So we made sure that sign was moved out of that area. And then the grass pavers that were talked about through there. He did talk about the left turns that do occur out of the other driveway on Union Street. And what we're doing is, currently there's no signage, although the driveway is oriented to encourage that as a no left turn. There's no signage in place, so we're adding the signage, adding some additional pavement markings. He had suggested the idea of extending the median down to block that. But from our perspective, we're adding additional measures, and even though a few folks have done that, this site layout is a little less conducive to that happening, and there have been no reported crashes associated with that particular movement. So we feel as though the measures that we've taken address and alleviate that concern, and I discussed that with Ron as well. And I believe another one was talking about the crosswalk. And making sure that we have pedestrian accessible routes along the crosswalk, which those are incorporated into the plans. There's some details that were in our response letter to address that. And there was a question of adding a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which you may have seen, elsewhere. the crosswalk lights that light up when a pedestrian's there. And really in the work that we've been doing elsewhere with Mass DOT and others, the use of those in federal highways guidance on that is to limit those to areas where there is a significant pedestrian safety issue so as not to diminish their effectiveness. So, we feel there are other unsignalized crossings on this section that work safely, and that this one shouldn't be an exception to that, and would work well with the traditional warning signs and the pavement marking striping that's there. I believe the other comments, one was about wayfinding signage on site, which has been added. And then the last one was on the site line map drawing that we had, which we've updated and included a revised version that is more clearly shown on the site plan, as well as an aerial photo. So our response letter addressed all of his comments. We've talked through with him what our responses are, and we feel as though we've satisfactorily addressed his concerns at this time.
No, can I ask you? You just mentioned and the crosswalks. This crosswalk striped on Summer Street, is that being done by this project, or they are existing?
This one is proposed as part of this project.
Okay, that's the one. That's the one I have a problem with, because the way it's accessing that corner, and I wanted to ask why that area is like an area where people park to go to the kids spot and the park. And it seems to me that that angle adjacent to an area where people are backing up doesn't seem safe to me. I mean, is there a reason why that's not perpendicular to the other side? I see that he's trying to align with what comes from the other side, but it seems to me that could be kind of an unsafe situation.
Yeah, the parking is actually set in quite a, this area is pretty deep, so the vehicle parking is actually in, much further. Excuse my poor drawing. So we felt as though there is ample space there. We could look to align that a little more perpendicular across. The real thing is we're trying to get them on the site plan over into this area where they have a good path up to the store and into the restaurant area that's accessible. So that's really
I realize that. The doesn't have to be that linear. I don't know if anybody else has the same concerns. Even my kids, the kids that go out from the middle school always go and walk to that spot and then go sometimes to the pharmacy. I'm sure they're going to go to the Starbucks when it's done, and they're going to be crossing in and out there and having cars backing up. Even if the parking is deep, the cars back out. So I think take another look at it. Make sure that there's going to be substantial crossing of people, especially kids, on that spot.
I assume this is something the traffic engineer looked at as well, but I agree with Marcelo. I've been there a million times myself. It'd be nice if you could fill in some details for us. One of the car icons, put it in there so that we can understand how deep the space is. And it is kind of feels awkward to have it go at that diagonal versus straight across. I know then sometimes people they cut the corner, right? They make their own path, but I'm wondering, it feels a little risky to me as well.
You should know that your consultant has reviewed that orientation twice and has felt it appropriate.
Okay, well, maybe we'll need to have a conversation just with him so that we understand, we learn a little bit more about how these things function from their point of view. So
that's not in any way to derogate the comments from the members on that, which as a layperson makes sense to me, but I'm not an engineer.
Right.
Yeah, but consultants make mistakes sometimes or overseas, so it's worth asking again.
And we're not, I think consultants are a resource and a data point, but we're still an independent board that has our own opinions. And I think these are great points that need to be addressed. I am a little concerned by the fact that we had one meeting in August and then there's a sort of multiple, while I appreciate the homework and the effort and the design review work, I think some of that may have been premature before coming to us with more change. And like I said, the logistical kind of movement of traffic is the big change I'm seeing with some landscaping elements. But the big picture items that seemed front and center to this board, the community element, the sustainability. I really want to know when we're going to come back to those topics. I keep reading, the 2020, 2021 reports from Starbucks on all the work that's being done by Starbucks internationally, the commitment to 100% renewable energy, the commitment to solar, the Starbucks Greener Stores framework, commitment to build 10,000 stores in the Greener Stores framework by 2025, which means building in construction that is fully LED certified. Why is Ashland not part of that? Why am I not seeing any of those elements? I really want to hear about that at some point.
Can I discuss that with you?
Yes.
All right. I'm just going to kind of give you some of the examples of the things that Starbucks has been doing. For example, recycled tire entry mats would be one thing. Natural wood and leather upholstery materials inside the building. Recycled and fully recyclable furniture in the building. LED lighting, we talked about that on the site, but it's also applicable for the inside of the store as well. Low flow restroom facilities and dishwashers, for instance. They use recycled glass composite countertop materials. They also use sustainably sourced wood siding on the buildings. They minimize the use of ozone depleting refrigerants inside the store, in the refrigerators, for instance. Bike racks, I mentioned that to you before. Use of low VOC products as well. And then low e-glazing. I assume that's for the windows. I'm not an architect, but I'm doing the best I can here. I think Adam is also here Keith Betancourt can help me out too. And then Starbucks has a bunch of things they do as far as day-to-day operations. They offer discounts to patrons that come in with their own coffee mugs, so it reduces obviously paper product usage. They do encourage the use of recycling, using signage and appropriate receptacles for trash versus recycling. They also encourage composting waste in a waste program. They can do that. They also reduce waste with food products and donate unused food products to local food banks. And another small one too, but another one worth mentioning is strawless lids. They don't have stirrers. They have strawless lids essentially is one thing. So if Keith wants to add to any of that stuff, he has a far bigger knowledge of it than I do. But
yeah, thank you, Scott. You covered most of it. Just for the record, Keith, my name is Keith Betancourt. I'm the architect of record from BKA Architects. One point I do want to mention architecturally on what was mentioned of the recycled siding, the sustainably sourced siding wood is it actually goes a step further beyond that. The majority of the facade is that wood, and it's a special Japanese treatment of the wood where they char it. And the point of doing that is so to avoid to give it a weather protectant sealant without actually using a chemical and a product to do so. So the charring process gives it that sealant necessary for weather resistance without actually being more damaging to the environment. So just, quick architectural point. And then Scott, thanks for jumping in on the rest of those. The inside of the space and their operations are very much LEED friendly. However, Starbucks has gone away from the Green Building Council LEED process, but all of the initiatives are still being utilized.
So one question in terms of architecture to follow up to answer one of the concerns that Anna raised. It looks. I'm very familiar with the siding technique you described, and I think it's great that's being used. Is there a reason why in stores like this, and I don't know the orientation, I don't know where is north here, only flat roofs are being used, and that there's no precedent for inclined roofs that may be more attuned for a town like us, and maybe allow for solar panel installation?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Starbucks design team has picked this. This is their suburban prototype design, and their design team picked this. The one thing I can comment on in regards to any type of solar panels being used in a design like this, the HVAC equipment ends up on the roof as opposed to site mounted somewhere and taking up space in the site. Adding more pervious material or impervious material. My apologies. So with the rooftop units, they're very large rooftop units that run this operation. They're one 15-ton unit, one 10-ton unit. They've got exhaust fans. They've got hood exhaust fans, et cetera, et cetera. The roof gets filled relatively quickly. And the amount of solar panels you would get is inconsequential to energy conservation to make it worth it on a 2,500 square foot footprint like this.
Okay.
I'll just say that it's news to me that Starbucks has moved away from its commitment. I'm looking at March 2022, the 30th annual meeting of shareholders. Starbucks reiterated its commitment to the goal of reducing waste by 50% 2030. There's no mention of moving away from the net zero commitment. So although a particular initiative like the Greener Building Initiative might be less popular within Starbucks right now, that's not the message of the company this year. So something isn't connecting for me here. I think Starbucks can do a lot more.
I thought what he had said was moving away maybe from using LEED versus there's many other standards out there. And many other groups are going toward using a mix of standards or other standards. I'm not familiar with at all where Starbucks is going, but I do want to make sure, Kevin or Deepa, if you want to jump in at this time. If you don't, that's fine. We'll be having another conversation, but I wanted to give you an opportunity if you wanted to. Actually, don't see you on my limited screen right now, so.
I guess I only have like two traffic related questions. One is where on the screen where we're looking here is the order point. So how many cars are queued behind the order point?
So there's a total shown on the site plan of 13 cars in the drive-through lane. I believe it's 7 from the drive-through window to the menu board, which is located in this area where this tree is. I'm circling it here. And then, so that's car number 7, and the remaining number of cars, 6 cars, would get you to the end of the drive-through lane, which is down here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm just picturing the Dunkin' Donuts up the street, which they split traffic with here, and they have quite a long queue there. It backs up pretty far, I would say, at least 5 or 6 cars beyond their order board. So, I'm just wondering if we're going to be into that lane of parking, which seems like might be excess parking anyways, but just trying to picture what it'll look like in reality. My other question is the crosswalk we were talking about earlier, where it connects to the crosswalk inside the site. Is there a reason that doesn't line up with the stop bar? I see somebody coming around the corner of the building and not knowing there's a crosswalk there.
Gary can also talk about this, but one of the reasons why that's shown the way it's shown is in working with the Design Review Commission, they wanted to limit the amount of pavement and concrete, so that island by the stop bar was turned into a landscaped island specifically on purpose. So that's part of the reason.
And then that's what I was going to say. It's all based on internal and trying to make an accessible path, and not trying to put a curb ramp and all concrete on that peninsula island there that's on the end. It's really about where you're connecting. But folks coming around that curve, it is a fairly tight radius. Folks will be driving pretty slow coming around there. So we're comfortable that that's a safe connection. And again, we've worked with the peer reviewer and discussed that location, that entire area in particular.
It doesn't make any sense to move the stop bar back to line up with it. I mean,
the trouble
around the corner with your new coffee in your hand, putting your wallet away and all that, and
so
it's a situation. Stop once for pedestrian and then stop again for the stop line.
Yeah, and really we don't. At the morning hour, you're not going to have a steady flow of pedestrians coming through there. It will be more sporadic. And really, we wanted the stop line where they'll have visibility. You know, if they're stopping back before that crosswalk and there's cars parked in any of those spaces, they're not going to have a good line of sight into somebody coming out of that aisle. So we felt putting it up further gave them better visibility as they try to exit out from that drive-through lane.
I gotta say, Kevin brings up a really good point. It's a little counterintuitive, the sequence of this, and the cars that are doing the stop sign maybe actually blocking the sidewalk as well. I mean, if the rationale is just to not put grass or what have you on that tiny island, I don't think it's a strong enough rationale. I think if that crosswalk was right at that point after the stop sign, and it would align better with the crosswalk that's on Summer Street, I think seems to me a more logical sequence.
I would say to you that we could look at shifting the crosswalk down closer to the stop bar, which to your point will help us make the angle a little bit cleaner. Between Gary and I, we can look at making that a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, we can look at it. I mean, my concern is even if you put that crosswalk right out near the point, which from an accessibility standpoint may be a challenge, your stop line ends up, you know, back in this area. And we just want to make sure that, you know, to the point I was making earlier, that there's sufficient line of sight so that you can see back in this direction and be able to see those cars that are coming through from that parking area. So
I think
that's what we're trying to control.
Yeah, there's a lot of different considerations here, and we're not going to figure it all out in talking about this meeting. I think the important thing is that the planning board is offering, from our point of view, really, you know, having seen this new site plan, some areas of concern and that are maybe different or even in opposition to other people that have reviewed it, and obviously those concerns need to be addressed between now and the next time we meet. So unless there's any other questions from the board, I am going to take.
Can I just say one thing? Because I think some responses got responded to. I think you're on the right track. Like we're offering where we stand, but I want to make sure the public space doesn't get obliterated, because people talked about, we know that, and probably Starbucks would welcome, and maybe sometimes not, kids coming there, right? And making it a public space. I would at least want to see, unless that's absolutely impossible, and this is it. But that wasn't my impression of what we're getting, especially since the first meeting.
You mean the vegetated area at the apex?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking? Okay. Yeah.
If I could also add the
interior. Well, my suggestion would be, hold on just a minute. Well, my suggestion would be, again, that we have a long agenda tonight. This is only the second time we're seeing this project. It's certainly not the last. What I would recommend is that the next time we kind of hold it for here now, and I think maybe I will even waylay public comment for now, but next time have, make sure the design review committee is invited to attend, so we can also fully understand how they got to where they're at, because we didn't see those two meetings or have the comments in between that I'm aware of. I didn't get a list of meeting minutes of things that they had talked about, or else it got buried in my email, frankly, so that we can have that larger discussion with the design review committee as well. Our major concerns are out there. That doesn't mean they're the only ones, but as we keep looking at this project, I think we need that other realm of voices as well that have actually been meeting with this applicant more than we have. So I would like to hear how they got to this point and what other things we might want to keep in mind as we discuss this project. So with that said, I actually think that we should, with those concerns out there, that we should continue this public hearing. And that will also give us time, since some of these documents we did fairly recently receive, also give us time to reabsorb it again before we see this project again. Is there any comments from the board? Is that's an okay way to proceed? All right. Peter, when would we be seeing this project again? And I think at that time we would want the issue of the parking, some ideas about the parking, some ideas about that crosswalk to have been more fully vetted.
Mhm. Yeah, so just myself to the applicant, obviously, Mr. Efren and, your team, obviously it's December. We have the Christmas holiday, we have Hanukkah, we have a couple other ones, mixed in here. The planning board is meeting on the 15th of December. We do have a full agenda. I don't know if it makes sense to squeeze in a meeting or to move this out until the new year. The next meeting of the new year is going to be January 2nd. Obviously, I think the planning board would be looking in with the applicant in agreement to move this to a future meeting. Jerry, Attorney Efren, do you have any insight or do you know when your team would like to put this get back in front of the planning board regarding the timing standpoint? I think
we'd like to get it to the planning board sooner than later, provided, however, that we need to get a clearer sense of direction of those potential changes. I've got a couple areas that I think that the chair summarized very well in her most recent comments, dealing with the parking spaces, particularly in that end area, to allow for potentially a turnaround and essentially a relook at the, notwithstanding the comments of the DRC and your consultant, at both the angle and orientation and location of the crosswalk. I think from a design perspective, those are the two biggest things. Some of the other comments, I think, really do not require design modifications in and of itself. So it's really up to the team to determine when they could be ready. I'm not an engineer.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure that's accurate. I want to make sure that the comment that Kate just made, and I think Anna had brought before, at least is giving some considerations. That apex area, I guess, is that what Kate, is that what you meant? Because we had talked about that being more of more user friendly, and I know this came from the design review.
1000% clear, because I don't want to waste time on this. There is no way, zero possibility, that the applicant and Starbucks will dedicate any portion of their site for public use. It's not a park. It's not going to be a park. We are absolutely willing to listen to the look of the area, the composition of the area, the orientation of the area, the landscaping of the area. But that is not going to be public access. This is not the last project that you just had before you. And I'm sorry if that's disappointing, but we are not in a position to dedicate a portion of this site. And Starbucks won't let us. Remember, Starbucks is not the applicant here. The applicant is Retail LLC, the property owner. They have a lease with Starbucks.
I think, Mr. Efren, I don't think this is about a land grab here. I think this is about.
That's not the word I use.
No, what? I think this is, I don't know. I don't like the direction the conversation is going. And so I'm going to end it right here. So I think this is about just a discussion about this went into the discussion with the design review committee. We were not a part of that. And we're going to want to understand that more fully. So that's what we are going to do. We're going to understand it more fully. Like I said, I would like to understand design review committee's point of view from where it started and where it ended up. And then we will go from there with these other issues as well.
I did not want to mislead the board into thinking that there was something that was on the table, which frankly, we're not in a position to give. That was the sole reason for my comment.
That is fine. But I think the definition of public space maybe not clear here, right? So I don't want to go forward without those things being clear. And I think we, like I said, have delved enough into this project where we know some of where the questions are. We have more information to understand about it before we come back to it. Peter has already said that our agenda for December 15th is full. There's a few projects that have been waiting to get on the agenda. And so I think this puts us at January 12th, which is our first meeting in January. Is that correct, Peter?
That would be the first meeting in January, yes.
That's fine.
Okay. So with that said, Jerry, I would, I just would like to get a, email and or a letter just, confirming our agreed continuance, to stop the shot clock, and, then I can file that with the town clerk if possible.
I'll get it to you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
That we continue the hearing till the January 12th meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, and a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So that is continued until January 12th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
All right. Next on our agenda, Peter, I'm going to have you explain these things a little bit because we have three extremely similar, but listed separately. Special permits at 34 Albert Ray Drive. I don't know if you need to read it in first and then explain, or what you decide on your order.
I am going to read it in. I'm going to read them in. There is three of them. They are very similar. And tonight, please know they will all be represented by the same person, Miss Kate Adams, who appears on the screen. Hello, Kate. And so I'm just going to read this into the public record. I'm going to use, instead of reading all three public records, I am going to state the name of each applicant, because every public hearing is the same word for word as this moves through. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions with that? No. Kate, are you okay with that? For the fact that
I just want to make a note that there is a little bit of a difference in the application for Dish Wireless.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I will read Dish itself at one, and then I will read the other two as the same.
Perfect. Thank you.
Word for word. Thank you so much, Kate. So to open the public hearings, I'm going to say the Ashland Planning Board will hold a public hearing on December 1st, 2022 at 7:15 via Zoom conference. Welcome all. To hear the petition of AT&T Mobile and to hear a petition of Verizon Wireless. They are requesting a special permit modification per Chapter 282, Section 6.4 Wireless Communication Facilities of the Ashland bylaws. The applicant seeks to modify the existing special permit for the removal and replacement of antennas and ancillary equipment. The collection will be aesthetically consistent with the existing structure and antenna array. The property in question is located at 34 Albert Ray Drive. This is Assessor's Map 9, Lot 173, and that is the same for both. And it is in Residential A district. Parties to be heard on this matter should submit comments to the planning board ahead of time and or appears at time and place indicated above. Materials may be viewed at the Ashland, at www.ashlandmass.com on the current cases before the zoning board and or at town hall by appointment or by normal business hours. For more information, please, for more information or to submit comments, please contact myself, Peter Matchak, and then list my office number and my email number. The chair, Trisha Kendall. So that is opening the public hearings for both T-Mobile and Verizon Wireless. And that is the same application where they are looking to take down antennas and then putting up new antennas. So the third application tonight is for Dish Wireless. I'm going to read this into the public hearing. Excuse my excuse me. The Ashland Planning Board will hold a public hearing on December 1st, 2022 at 7:15 via video conference to hear the petition of Dish Wireless requesting a special permit modification per chapter 282, section 6.4 wireless communication facilities. The applicant seeks to implement to modify the existing special permit, the removal and replacement of antennas and ancillary equipment. The collection will be aesthetically consistent with the existing structure and antenna arrays. The property in question is located at 34 Albert Ray Drive, Assessors Map 9, Lot 137, Residential A District. Properties may wish to be heard on this matter may submit comments to the Ashland Planning Board ahead of time and or appear as indicated above. Materials may be viewed at Town Hall and on the town website. For more information, please submit to myself, please submit comment, and please contact myself, Peter Matchek at ashlandmass.com. So just to jump into this, I just want to explain this a little bit. So 34 Albert Ray Drive, there is an existing cell phone tower there. Verizon Wireless and AT&T Mobile already have equipment on this tower. Correct, Kate. Dish Wireless is a new wireless company and it's new to the scene, and they are requesting a special permit to implement and or to install equipment onto this tower. So
That's
they
correct.
are looking for a special permit to do so.
That's correct.
And so there is one special permit, two modifications of an existing special permit.
Correct.
All equipment is 5G capable. And that was confirmed and it was put on the agenda tonight. It was not added, it was not taken into the public hearing notice. I mean, the hearing notice, because it was not pulled out of the original application as submitted. And I apologize for that. But with that said, in the agenda, there was it was added to each that there were the applications were 5G capable equipment. This also falls under the Spectrum Act, which I think we've dealt with on a few occasions, where the FCC has ruled back in 2012 that applicants and or wireless communication companies can, on occasion, go forward and move and take old equipment off and new equipment on. And so I think I've done my best to explain it without being too technical, but I think through the chair, and if it's okay with you, Tricia, I would like to hand it over to Kate Adams, and she can walk us through anything that I missed.
Yeah, that's fine. If you can give us a more clear picture of kind of what's happening there. I think we all know the basic premise. We've had these before, but if you can explain a little better, if you have any images, that would help as well. Thank you.
So let me pull open, I'm going to pull open Dish's drawings first because it shows where their new antennas are proposed. So let me see if I can share my screen. Here we go. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we scroll up to the first page. This is the tower as it stands. Verizon and AT&T are already existing on this tower. They have their antennas already up. And, Dish Wireless is, as you said, Peter, new to the scene. They are currently building out their network and are, following in the footsteps of the other big three carriers. And this is, one of their prime locations to build their network. And they are looking to install their antennas below all the other two antenna arrays. So I go back to that page that I was just on. Their center line that they're looking to go at is 74 feet. They'll be installing only 3 antennas, very, very low profile to the pole itself. The pole itself is here. So they won't, the Verizon and AT&T have anywhere between 9 and 12 antennas. Dish right now is only proposing to install 3. Cables will be running inside the tower, and there are only 2 of them, a fiber cable and a power cable. And then they will be installing their equipment cabinet on the ground, which will be located within the existing fenced compound, just like the others. So there's no change to the actual tower itself. Nothing is changing on the tower other than the new antenna array being installed with the mounts that they have chosen. You won't see any cabling on the outside. And then let me see if I can find our equipment cabinet page here for you. I think I have to go back. It's a small platform. They're looking to install a 5-foot by 7-foot steel platform on the ground, which is kind of just sits on feet. There's not any digging required to put it down. And then on that platform, they'll have their equipment cabinet, which, as you can see, is just shy of 3 feet by just shy of 3 feet. So it's a very small footprint within the compound, not taking up too much space. So that's what Dish is proposing to install. Before I move on to any of the other carriers, are there questions about Dish and their Dish itself, I should ask? You know, I know that a lot of people are unfamiliar with Dish Wireless, and when they hear Dish, they picture what you would see on the top of a building, like a microwave dish type looking type of apparatus, but it's not. They're wireless panel antennas, just like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile.
I don't have any questions. Anyone else from the board?
I have questions. They're sort of for all of them, so I can wait, or they did sort of Dish as well.
I think unless they're specific, let's get the whole big picture, and then we'll come back to all the questions.
Okay. So this is the Dish. This is the Dish proposal. Like I said, center line is 74 feet, 10 feet below the center line of the next carrier above them. So I will move on to the AT&T project now. And these were the CDs that were submitted with that one. AT&T is looking to remove antennas that are already existing and replace them. Find you a good visual here. I'll scroll back. I'll zoom back in once I find the best picture to show you. Here we go. All right. So AT&T is just above where Dish is proposing to go. And they currently have 9 antennas installed, 3 on each sector. So 3 on each arm sticking out from the pole here. What they're looking to do is remove 6 of these antennas, so 2 per sector, and then install what is 9. However, one of them is a regular size panel antenna, and then so that would, you know, that's 3 total, one on each side, and then 6 total, or, you know, 2 on each side of these smaller antennas right here that are going to be stacked one on top of the other. They're just going to be replacing some cabling, which everything is routed inside the tower, and that's pretty much it. I mean, the radios that are on the back of the panels, you know, that work to boost those frequencies. They you know, some of those are getting replaced. And yeah, it's basically just maintenance for AT&T, just to keep up with the evolving technology and to make sure that their carriers are getting the best type of service that they can get. There's only change to the ground space on what's already existing. They're not going to be adding any more cabinets or anything like that. They're, you know, basically just where the cabling is coming in. There's no other footprint being added here. It's just updating where that cabling is going in. And yeah, as you can see, AT&T does have the 11 by 20 foot shelter here, and all of that, you know, that other equipment that supports the antennas on the tower, anything that's being replaced is already is within the shelter that's already existing. So unless there are any questions about the AT&T modification, I will move on to Verizon.
I think that's fine. I think it'd be best to have it all in one picture.
Alrighty. Okay. So Verizon will be up at the top. They're already existing up at the top. The rad center for Verizon is 102 feet. They are going to be adding 3 small antennas to their mount up there. The mount is meant to hold more than just the antennas that they have here. And oftentimes when Verizon goes and applies with tower companies or, or with private landlords on rooftops, they'll secure a certain amount of antennas that they are allowed, but just don't install all those antennas. So they do keep the space on the mounts for, future antennas, future use. So they'll be installing 3 total antennas, 1 on each face. They are very small antennas compared to the ones that are already there. As you can see, that the difference in size is pretty noticeable. Verizon will be adding 1 hybrid cable, which is a combination of power and fiber, and also being routed up the pole as it, alongside their other cables. And then for groundwork, there isn't any going on here. Aside from the cable, Verizon is not doing anything to their ground equipment. It is just the antenna ad. They are adding a junction box, which is that's called it's a junction box. It also referred to as a squid. I don't know if you're familiar with them. It's basically just a safety mechanism if there were ever an electrical surge or anything like that. And yeah, there's not much more to this one. I also have somebody on with me. His name is Donovan. He works for Crown Castle and he is working on this Verizon project. So Donovan, if there's anything you'd like to add to this, please feel free.
Yeah, nothing in particular. Thank you, Katie. I think you explained it well. I'm with Crown Castle. We own and operate the cell tower there. And so we work with all the different companies. I'm personally on our Verizon team working with mainly Verizon projects, but I'm also very familiar with this specific Dish project and AT&T project. And all 3 carriers are wanting to either install new or upgrade their equipment to help them increase the cell phone coverage in the area for the residents of Ashland, and helping, get better coverage for emergency services, more bandwidth and better speeds to upgrade to the new current technology.
All right, are there any questions from the board on this? As obviously we've had these projects before. Well, let me just open it up to the board.
I have a question. So the original packet did not have Dish like engineering stuff, but that might have come because I think there was some stuff that came later. So I think that is, we should find out though. So then if presumably Donovan, like your group, so it's not just somebody did engineering data, because I'm adding 3 things for Verizon and separately I'm adding 6 things for someone else, and then Dish is adding 3 things. Is there any engineering data that covers all a collective ad, since we're looking at separate applications? And then I guess this is a question for Peter and the board. I mean, there's pages and pages of engineering data, and I believe that someone ran engineering data, but I'm not smart enough to know if that's correct. And is that something the board would look at, third-party verification of any of that, as we do on other things for projects? My two other questions I think I have on past things that Albert, Ray, Albert, I don't know, it's late. The notification for abutters included Framingham. So I don't know if that happened or if we have to care if it happened, but I do have a question about that. Oh, and then there's new equipment, some of this, and I assume it's probably, I know when you're dealing with fiber, it's not noisy, but I just think we should make sure that there's no expected change for the decibels of noise there. And then maybe related to that would be related to, I guess, for the public would be, how is this installed? Like if having a giant crane come in and mow down the landscaping. And I don't think you will. I think you're responsible, but I just want to make sure that we get that stuff ironed out. That's what I have.
Sure. Starting at the beginning there, going to the structural engineering of the thing, we definitely do. We use third-party engineers that analyze all-encompassing data. So all of these projects encompass the project before them. So all three of these are all encapsulated in what we call a structural analysis. And so the last project in line, where we have what we call an application system, where the different carriers come to us and enter this process in our system. The last one in line was Verizon. So that Verizon project, the essay that we have for that captures the Verizon work, the AT&T work, and the proposed Dish work, and all of that was still all considered deemed structurally sufficient as the tower stands. So we're definitely good from a structural point. And, as the tower owner, we're very conscious of, making sure that the tower is safe and in good standing, for the residents that live around there. But also, as part of our assets, we want to protect our assets and make sure that that's in good standing for sure. You asked a number of different questions there, and so I might forget which ones. What was next in your questions, Kate?
A better notification of Framingham. I don't entirely know that that's our business as the planning board, but I do know in the past when Ashland did evaluate, perhaps even the first time, that was butters were noticed for Framingham because of the distance.
I can answer that, and I would say the town of Framingham's planning board was notified, as the Framingham planning board is always notified as an abutting town. Were residents in Framingham? No, I do not think that within the original application a Framingham abutters list was received, and so therefore residents within 300 feet, obviously this is kind of close to the town line, were not notified of this case. And I would have to go back. I did not go, and I do not know if the original files of this tower, when it was permitted, did in effect list the Framingham residents.
I saw Ashland data that had Framingham. That's why I asked the question. Okay. So I don't know if we have responsibilities about that. If we do, then we have to correct that. That's why I raised the issue. And the other question was about noise and like proper landscaping, particularly during or after construction, if any damage to that.
Yeah, our contractors, the GCs that contract to do this work, if there was any damage to landscaping or whatever, they are responsible for repairing that back to, as they, arrived, whatever is currently there. So if there is a bush there and somehow they drove over with their truck, they're responsible for replacing that and getting it back up to standard. As far as noise, there's no noise increase. There's no applicable noise. This is just standard stuff. The only noise usually that you'd ever incur at a cell tower site would mainly be a generator when backup power is needed for emergency purposes to keep connectivity through storms and power outages and stuff. Obviously, a generator generates noise, but any generators that we have on site would still be applicable to be below any permitted noise levels. And I don't think, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, all three of these projects, none of them involve a generator install.
That's correct.
So, yeah, the two projects, like for Verizon and AT&T, is mainly taking down some older equipment, replacing it with newer equipment, just to get it current take advantage of the newest current standards and frequencies that are being used. And so it's very similar to unplugging your old VCR and plugging in a new VCR. We're just doing this 100 feet in the air. The Dish project is installing a new carrier at that lower center line. I think it's around 70 feet. And that Dish wireless was kind of created a few years back when Sprint and T-Mobile merged, part of the government rule that they, had to create a fourth entity to prevent monopolies and stuff like that. So Dish entered and is using some of their frequencies, and so they're kind of taking over and they're installing nationwide to kind of get their new network up and running. And that's going to give consumers and the residents of Ashland more options for, maybe cheaper cell phone plans and, having another option of somewhere to go. So
I have two comments on this, which is mostly maybe directed at Peter and our process for this, for this application. One is that at least for the companies that are already present on that tower, we as the planning board have a limited capability to deny what goes on that tower, is as per the other ones like this we've seen. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
And does that then apply to the addition of a new company, or is that different?
Great question, and I don't want to make up an answer on the fly.
I can speak to that a little bit. I have a lot of experience with this. So the ruling you were talking about originally, Peter, is an FCC ruling that is Section 6409. And what it was is the FCC deemed to try to streamline these processes to help increase coverage. So what that does is there's certain criteria. There's 6 criteria that if a project meets these criteria, it's considered an eligible facilities request, meaning that it's not a substantial increase. We're not increasing the tower size. We're not increasing the tower width. We're not defeating stealth concealments. We're not expanding the compound past a certain amount. So all 3 of these projects fall into that criteria. And so the FCC ruled in that ruling that you mentioned that if they fall into that jurisdictions have 60 days to review and approve these projects to try to streamline this. And I believe, I know all 3 of these fall into that. And we've, submitted all of the different documentation to you as part of our application to show how we've met those criteria, including, public safety and all those things, the structural capacity, the height, the width, the stealth concealments.
Okay, so my next question with that, I'm just trying to make a few things clear, because like I said, because we haven't dealt with these things before. My next question is on the last one I did, on the last one of these we did, I believe Anna brought up the point that that on the agenda, the 5G capability was not listed, and we do have some members of our community who but potentially members of the public, the residents in this area, that may want to have a voice on these type of things. Though the 5G is on this agenda, it was not on the agenda as for first published. It was not on the agenda as you received it on Friday or whenever that was. And I noted that it wasn't there, and Peter added it to the agenda, but it did not get the full note to people in the community. So to be consistent about what we've done in the past, which is one of the things I think we're shooting for as the planning board, that to me, needs to be taken into consideration. So, so I'm looking for any other questions from the planning board. I see this as a thing, also an area that I think the planning board, we've all been kind of busy with the holidays, may want to drive up in there so that we all understand what we're talking about, can have a more informed discussion about it. So I'm seeing this personally as something that we've heard it, we've gotten the information. It needs to have another iteration with the agenda out there with 5G on it. It needs to make sure that everyone who is supposed to be notified was notified. And then this would be continued till January, as making sure that that the continuance is accepted and that we're within the 60 days.
Unfortunately, the 60-day shot clock starts at time of application.
Right, but how does that work with the continuance?
So with a continuance, typically that shot clock stops. And so I think what we're trying to say is that I think if we're in agreement, we would like to continue this until January 12th. I think with the planning board, the avenue the planning board is going down is I think we need to secure, and I'm happy to work with you, is to secure and certify the abutters list from the town of Framingham. Is that correct from the planning board standpoint? And that the planning board would like to at least notify the abutters, all the abutters within the 300-foot radius, which would include the residents of Framingham. And then we could come back on the 12th and obviously move this forward.
Yeah, and that the agenda stays
to that.
the agenda stays published, obviously, with the 5G technology, which may not be a part of the application, but it's obviously something that members of our community are concerned about, and we want to make sure that we're presenting the issues before us with clarity.
The 5G capable equipment, I mean, that was submitted with the application. That was on the it's listed on the cover page of each set of drawings that were submitted. Donovan, you were gonna say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna add to Peter, to your point when you were saying about asking for the continuance. The way the FCC ruling is written is that 60-day shot clock starts when we submit everything, and then the shot clock doesn't stop tolling unless the jurisdiction provides written notice on what we haven't provided as part of like what's in your ordinance that says we have to provide construction drawings or structural analysis or whatever we have to provide. If we didn't meet all those specific spots of what was needed in the application. So I believe Katie's worked through all those. There was a couple things we needed on this one or that one, and I think we got all of those things back to you. So at the point when we got all of those things back to you, having a continuance on this hearing actually doesn't hold the shot clock per the FCC ruling.
Did your application address the abutters?
The abutters.
There was
a Framingham.
Not a Framingham.
So I would say that that's a good reason to consider agreeing to a continuance. Essentially, what we're trying to say is we understand that there's laws that make it extremely difficult for any planning board to deny your application. We're asking to be able to properly provide notice to the public and assure that it's a win-win for you, to assure that there's proper public notice so that, in fact, when we rule in your favor, it is supported by the public. So
yeah, and I hear what you're saying. I think from, we've applied with the town of Ashland, and I think that's the ruling jurisdiction here. In the published ordinance there, I don't think there's anything, if y'all want to notify the, abutting town or whatever, that's great. But I think at the end of the day, this is since it's in the town of Ashland, and town of Ashland is the jurisdiction here, it's really up to y'all. And, we can notify whatever, but, at this point, some of these projects, like I believe the dish project was started back in April. So these three customers are, really raring to go. They have commitments that they have to meet, like Dish, for example. As part of that deal, when they got the,
I think that's a road we don't need to hold. That's a road we don't need to go on about.
We're not going down this road.
Peter, where are we sitting on this? I mean,
I think, and Kate, I think the number one thing is the planning board would like to notify the residents of Framingham. I've measured this tower, the property line is 111 feet away from the town of Framingham property line. It would cover a couple homes in Framingham. I think no one's looking to get into a battle of the 60-day FCC, this ruling or that ruling. I think we would just like to take some time, let us notify, and I'm happy to work with you, Kate, to notify the residents of Framingham, and then we can come back on January 12th and shore up this matter. I think that's what
could I ask, is there any space in the December 15th hearing I don't think this is going to take much time.
I'm more than happy to put it on the agenda.
I think that would be really helpful for us. We really need to have this one taken care of by the end of this year. So if you could find the time to fit us in, that would be awesome.
I mean, I think that's a good compromise to wrap that up.
Yeah, because they've got like construction, scheduled, and they've got materials, and they've got all these things that if it keeps going on, like they're really itching to get this going. So that would be a great compromise that we'd really appreciate.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it, but I'm going to depend on you as the applicant to get a certified abutters list from the town of Framingham.
I can do that.
Okay.
Certified. So that's gonna. I have not gotten a certified abutters list for a property in one town from another town. So am I getting
well, you know what you do is you pick the property closest to the property, and then you just say 300 feet from there, and then you'll notify a couple more people, but that's all you really have to do. At the end, that's probably the easiest thing.
Okay, I'll take a look at some maps.
This is not going to go out this letter would not go out the entire 14 days prior to, which would meet mass legislation, which is chapter 40A. However, we would be giving notice, hopefully, if this could be done, if letters could go out a week for, next Wednesday or this upcoming Wednesday, the applicant would at least be, have notice a week in advance.
Okay. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the different departments in Framingham City Hall. I think I'll just stop in there on Monday. I have a very full schedule tomorrow, but I will stop in there on Monday and talk to them because I know these abutters lists also can take some time to put together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll see if I can work with them to get it to you before Wednesday of next week.
No, I think that works out. I think that would work out well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate you squeezing us in for that date.
Okay, so on that note, I will make a motion to continue all three of these public hearings together to our meeting on Thursday, December 15th.
Yes.
Right, and a roll call vote.
So Katie's going to work on getting that certified abutters list out, and we'll be on that, or hopefully be on that 15th agenda. At that meeting, can you also, what are we looking for there? Because you'd be giving the public in Framingham time to respond to this, and if they want to attend this meeting, and so Framingham residents would be able to voice their opinion on the.
Yeah, we're looking for both Ashland residents and who maybe didn't understand about the 5G because it wasn't originally published in the agenda, and for the Framingham residents that are also part of that locale to just have an opportunity to have a voice in these matters, which has come up before. So
I got you. Yeah, it's just we're really backed up with that 60-day timeline. So anything we can do to expedite this, because all three of these have been going for several months.
We got 60 days though, so if we're fitting under that, we're good. All right, so we've got a second. I'm going to take a roll call vote, starting with Deepa.
Deepa Venkata.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Aye.
Marcelo Arjona, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So this is continued until December 15th. And we will see you then.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a great night, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Kate, just so you know, we're having